Good evening, good evening, good evening. That was a bit of a dramatic going in there, but there you go. Oh, oh. I kid you not. I kid you not, readers. Tonight we are going to be looking at Craig Murray. I've threatened this over a couple of videos saying we'll be looking at Craig Murray. We'll be doing a Craig Murray video soon about his Ukraine U-turn. Oh no. This needs to be a live stream. This absolutely needs to be a live stream because honestly, here's his blog. This is what we're looking at. Rethinking Ukraine, Putin, and the mystery of national identity. That's like some really bizarre, like Harry Potter book. Like Harry Potter. Yeah, Harry Potter and the mystery of national identity. Anyway, yeah, this is, and I'm sorry, it is a long one. A long one. And we are going to end up going on tangents. We are going to go on rants. We are going to go sideways, left ways, diagonal ways. This is going to be the wonkavator of the evisceration of Craig goddamn Murray, because I will tell you now, he deserves it. He deserves it. This guy, if you don't know who Craig Murray is, former diplomat, former UK diplomat, indeed, diplomat to Uzbekistan as well. So he should at least know something about this area and it being his area of expertise. But as we're about to find out, no, because he's decided to run for George Galloway's Workers' Party, turns out you've got to be anti-Ukrainian. So Craig Murray, in his vastly infinite wisdom, has decided to write this rethinking Ukraine, Putin, and the mystery of national identity, which, quite frankly, is the single biggest U-turn and excuse for writing of a U-turn I have ever seen. Like, I kid you not, we are going to have, I don't know, we're just going to have some bizarre thrills tonight, I suppose, and see where this takes us. But honestly, this is going to be so bizarre. This is going to be so bizarre. But thank you if you do end up staying with me through all this evening for watching this. It's gonna be fun. Oh dear. What have I let myself into? What have I let myself into? But anyway, Attila, good evening to you. Dave W, good evening to you. One Angry Pagan, good evening to you. Dave W again. Craig, good evening to you. Richard, good evening to you as well. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to everyone else who's hiding, lurking outside of the chat. But good evening to you. Please do remember to hit that like and share button. Helps us get more in. By the way, there isn't a Labour Social tonight, so there are alternative streams you can visit tonight. I'm sure most of us will be live streaming tonight in some way, shape, or form. This is mine because this is one thing I've had on my docket to cover since I found this and read about it in private eye that I found this out. So yeah, this is what we're doing tonight. This is what we are doing tonight. 91 Leeds, hello to you. Craig, is his conclusion broader that Ukraine is basically as real as Narnia and therefore it is okay to invade the non-people? Possibly. Like I say, we'll find out together, Craig. We'll find out together. Because this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like. So, come with me as we begin this fascinating journey into Craig Murray's Ukrainian U-turn. Should we take bets? Should we set up a bingo card like before we begin about what's going to appear on here? Like, should we create a bingo card like before we even begin of what do we think is going to appear on this? Because I've already got one, and Craig's already sort of tipped it off that that Ukraine, or at least Ukrainianism, is just this made up identity by Ukrainians, and it doesn't really exist, and that's why Putin's okay to invade Ukraine. Do you think that's going to end up on the bingo card? I think it might. I think that is a very, very good opportunity for tonight's bingo card entry. Have a drink if you hear a Putin quote. I'm sorted. I am sorted if we get that far. Warangu Pagan. I'm one of the few who believe that NATO should actually be more involved at this point. Not a warmonger, but I believe that some fights are worth it. Yep. Like I say, we've repeated this I don't know how many times on this channel. Ukraine at the moment is fighting for its life. If Putin wins, who knows what's going to happen to Ukraine? Because he's pretty much demanding the complete and utter capitulation, unconditional surrender. So who knows what Putin would do, but ultimately it would be probably seizing a lot of territory. Ukraine would probably lose all its coastline. Certainly you would probably see another conflict pop up in Moldova with Transnistria, because obviously, Transnistria Russian. They may even decide to sort of take the rest of Moldova and give it over to the Transnistrian authorities, who, again, are very pro-Russian. That could be another consequences. The horrible, brutal occupation that will probably follow, the probable stationing almost permanently of Russian troops. Who knows how far and deep into Ukraine territory. Probably the absolute asset stripping of Ukraine as a country, with everything valuable literally stripped from them, in order to pay some sort of, I don't know, war reparations for this, or whatever excuse Putin will come up with. So, yeah, be prepared for a lot of apology tonight for Putin. And I honestly, Craig Murray, he deserves everything that he gets now. He's thrown his lot in with these people. As far as I'm concerned, any reputation this guy had prior to this is pretty much shot to hell. Sorry, you back George Galloway, you run for his party, you write an entire lengthy blog on why you are now doing this U-turn. Yeah, I am sorry. This guy deserves everything I'm about to just rip into him for. Right. Oh, let us begin. let us begin on this, because oh boy, yeah, just open a bottle of Shiraz, keep the quotes coming. Martin Arnold. NATO serves Western imperialism. Galloway serves Eastern imperialism. Yeah, we'll agree to disagree, because we're not. My ire is firmly aimed at Craig Murray tonight. So let's begin, shall we? Let us begin. So, the genocide in Gaza, or more precisely, the major NATO's powers' active and practical support for the genocide in Gaza, has forced me to reevaluate my views on Ukraine in a manner more sympathetic to the Russian narrative. How can you be more? The Russian narrative is just lies. Putin wanted to invade Ukraine because he saw the opportunity to take land and territory. And bear in mind, like, what's going on in Gaza, horrible, awful, but in no way is it a parallel and the exact same thing to what's going on in Ukraine. Nor, as many people did at the start of this, is, oh, this is like Cuba. This is like the Cuban Missile Crisis, and we'll solve this by some, cool, discreet back channel, diplomacy like JFK did. Again, not the same conflict. No two conflicts are the same. The reasons couldn't be more farther apart. Are we also going to be putting on our bingo card that Craig Murray now believes that if we are arming the Ukrainians, that we should also be arming the Palestinians as well? Because that was another argument, if you remember, advanced very early on by a lot of people. A dumb argument it was, but it still pops up from time to time. I think we might be getting that. If this entire blog just turns out to be that argument, if this argument turns out to be this entire blog, just that, oh no, I'm going to need a lot more drink this evening. Countdown Power, good evening to you. Good evening to everyone else joining us as well. Like I say, please do remember to click on the like and share button. It's going to be interesting. Yep. Richard, can't go into a lot of detail, but I walked one of the training areas where they've had partner forces over. Really sobering to think that they're off to defend their country, and some are probably dead now. Yep, I agree. But hey, they've probably gone into battle a lot more better trained and equipped than they would have been. I suppose that's a plus side of this. Rogue Pagan, don't forget that many Western leftist socialists try to defend the Russian Federation as if it still were the USSR. Just one example of how many need to move away from 20th century mindsets. Yeah, the tanky defense. We saw that. In fact, again, Galloway has had tankies on his channel, on his moat show, the mother of all talk shows, as he calls it. He's actually had tankies come on there and use that defense. So I don't know if Craig Murray's a tanky, but I suppose we'll find out. Anyway, let's continue on, shall we? So, in particular, I was complicit in my dismissive attitude to the argument that the Western powers would back ethnic cleansing and massacre in the Donbass by forces including some motivated by Nazi ideology. The same powers who are now funding and arming Ukraine are funding and arming a genocide by racial supremacist Israeli forces in Gaza. It is beyond argument that my belief in some kind of inherent decadency in Western political establishment was naive. I apologize. You should not be apologizing at all. Ukraine is not committing ethnic cleansing or massacres in the Donbass. That has never, ever been proven. Now, if you do want to talk about, ethnic cleansing and things under that definition, that would be Russia. Because Russia has kidnapped kids and forcefully deportated them to re-education camps so they can get the proper Russian education. where some have been forcefully adopted by now Russians. And still, we don't know where many of these kids are. Remember, which force committed a massacre here? That would be in Bucha, committed by the Russians, because not only do we have eyewitness testimony, we have video testimony from there. We have audio testimony of some of the people who were in Bucha, who were phoning homes to their families, committing, literally saying over the phone what they'd done in Bucha. So I'm sorry, but Ukraine isn't the one doing a ethnic cleansing in the Donbass. That would be Russia. And another thing, if Putin does win this war, oh boy, you can guarantee there is going to be a lot of, shall we say, ethnic cleansing of the Ukrainians. Now, they are not going to be afraid to go and do all kinds of stuff to the Ukrainians that get left behind in these occupied areas. And yet, this guy, it's fine because, some were just, motivated by Nazi ideology. Now, here's the thing. If you go back to World War II, this whole thing is very, very complex because those Ukrainians who fought on the Nazi side did so with the belief that they thought that they were finally going to free themselves and rid themselves of the USSR. They thought this was their chance for freedom. And many did fight on the Axis side with that belief. Did some get involved in the Nazi side of politics? Yes, some did drink the Kool-Aid, unfortunately. But hey, it is a very, very complex situation that many felt at the time. By the way, most of the troops from the Soviet Union did come from Ukraine as well. So not all fought on that, but you must know, or at least acknowledge, the reason why some of these people fought on this side. Now, is there any truth or evidence that there has been full Nazis like fighting in the Ukrainian army? There has been like the one or couple of pictures of, oh look, they're using a flag or something like that, but that has been it. Like, that has very, very much been it. And other than that, there has been no excuse for any of this. So him believing this, he is really parroting the Russian propaganda there. So if you're following with the drinking game of Russian propaganda, you can have yourself a drink. Anyway, who else in the chat? Tube Driver, good evening to you. Colin Thompson, greeting to you as well. Blue Badger, good evening to you as well. E-Plays, good evening to you. Colin Thompson. Oh, were you in Taiwan? So, yes, the roof of my home shook for a few moments. Oh, we did see. What shocked me was the broadcast. That was really crazy of them broadcasting while it's all going on. You can see them just going, I'm trying to sort of stay up. What? New York had a 4.8 earthquake. I did not know that. I did not know that there had been an earthquake in New York. Oh. But no, that's news to me. But anyway, let's continue on this. Golden Boy. I have two friends, one from Chechnya, another from Syria. all their families killed by Russians. Yep. Of course, someone like this, Craig Murray, would insist that, you know, that the Russians were light in doing that, unfortunately. And like I say, this guy deserves everything he's got coming in this evening. He really does. Tom Nelson, good evening to you. Flying visit tonight. You need to record videos on chemical kinetics for your BCA class. Well, good luck for that. So this is the earthquake that happened in New York. So a magnitude of 4-point earthquake has been felt across New York City and its surrounding areas. The epicenter of the tremor was near Lebanon, New Jersey, about 40 miles west of New York City. I didn't know that. Like I say, first time I've heard that. But anyway, let's get more ripping into Craig Murray, because again, this guy deserves it. Let's see what else he's got to say. So we've had his excuse that he now thinks that the Ukrainians are committing some sort of ethnic cleansing in the Donbass. Hasn't provided any evidence for that, to which he said he apologizes. Let's see what he's got. So this does not mean that I was wrong to call the Russian invasion of Ukraine, of the Ukraine state, illegal. I'm afraid it was. You see, the law is the law, and it has only a tenuous connection to either morality or justice, a thing that can be justified and morally right, but still illegal. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You cannot just go, well, the Russian invasion of Ukraine is illegal. You know, I'll grant you that. But I'll tell you what, morally, you know, maybe the Russians have got a point. Sorry, you can't do that. You just cannot say that. What is... oh dear. Oh dear, we've got a lot to go. We've got a lot to go through. We've got a lot to go through still, and that's just his opening salvo. Oh no. Oh no. I mean, I'm sorry, but can you imagine using this excuse? Like if you had committed a crime. You know, sorry, Your Honor, I know what I committed was against the law, but morally, I think you'll find I was in the right. Anyway, when I were a pagan. People like this treat global politics as if the US and the UK are the biggest and only noteworthy evil states. Giving Russia and the others the autonomy just to be evil is ridiculous. Yeah, exactly. Gets trotted out by the anti-ULEZ mob. Yeah, Your Honor, I was right to cut down this traffic light because it had a ULEZ camera on. Might be illegal, but you know what? I was morally right. Yeah, I'm sorry. That isn't an argument. That is just not an argument, because at that point, what then is deemed moral? And what does that mean for a lot of like law in general? And then does this give you the right to break a law because you believe that it's not moral? I mean, just this argument alone is crazy. Countdown to Power sounds a bit like Tory morals to me. Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But remember, this guy's not a Tory. This guy is running for George Galloway's party. So this is the Worker and the Worker and Socialist Party running. Yeah, well, counterpart. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was morally right to send people to Rwanda because we needed their votes of the racists, and that's easily misled. Yep, tax dodging is a moral argument. Anyone? Yep. There's just so much stuff, and it's just. I'm sorry, but that's just such a ridiculous argument. If that is his reason for this, like this is just a non-argument because there's so much stuff that Russia has done during this war, which goes beyond the moral concerns. If I got a chance to sort of talk to Craig Murray, I would ask him about the numerous war crimes that Russia has committed. What's his moral feeling on these things? I suddenly have a feeling that he's gonna be suddenly okay with that. Yeah, basically his position is it depends, and when asked, depends on what, the honest answer is what's convenient at the time. That would be very true if you were questioning. That would be very true for do that. That'll be very true indeed. When I was pagan, yeah, just because the West has done illegal invasions doesn't make it all right for Russia or anyone else to. We were in the wrong, and so are they. Yep, two wrongs don't make a right, but not potentially according to Craig Murray. Anyway, let's continue with this, shall we? So, where were we? Yes. So, the proof of this. Proof. I see what his proof is. So, the proof of this is that we have an entire legal structure governing transactions which is designed to achieve a massive concentration of wealth. Is this guy seriously using an anti-capitalist argument to try and justify the war in Ukraine? I'm not going to have enough. I'm really not going to have enough to get through this. We're barely started. Oh, counterpart. I was quite shocked when I did a video about Galloway. The comments were completely bonkers from his supporters. Know how you feel. Know how you feel. Done a couple of videos about Galloway myself. Yep, they're crazy. And bear in mind, I have used George Galloway in this title, so we'll see. We'll see if we get any of his followers along tonight. That could be very interesting. if some decide to show up. So yeah, I generally can't believe this guy seems to be using an anti-capitalist argument to somehow say that Russia is yeah. Anyway, let's continue. So in consequence, the world is now predicted to have its first trillionaires within inside the next 5 years, while millions of children go hungry. This is plainly immoral. It is also plainly unjust. But it is not only legal; it is the purpose of the system of law. Still doesn't excuse why you're now saying that you're now supporting Russia. Still doesn't excuse you supporting Russia. I am, however, concerned that the quote right to protect doctrine has not become accepted in international law, because it is in general an application in general application neo-imperialist. It was developed by the Blair government to initially to justify NATO bombings of Serbia and the re-British occupation of Sierra Leone, and was used by Hillary Clinton to justify the destruction of Libya on the basis of lies about immediate massacre in Benghazi. We should be wary of the doctrine. Um, Sierra Leone going through, I believe, at the time, its own massive civil war, having its own problems with, I believe, with ethnic cleansing. I believe, um, you know, we weren't the only country, I believe, that retook up positions in Sierra Leone to try and sort of make sure that didn't happen. Um, the bombing of Serbia during the Kosovo campaign. What should we have done then? This is often the argument you hear. Oh, we should have never of bombed Serbia. The bombing of Serbia was wrong. Okay, what should we have done? Should we have just sat back and let all those massacres happen? Should we have just sat back and just gone, yeah, Craig, yeah, isn't the right to protect Russians basically Putin's whole argument? It is his whole argument, which is what I was about to say, for why he invaded. Yeah, it was a lie, but it was still his official motive. Yeah, exactly. That was his entire justification. His entire justification was he wanted to defend the people of the Russian speakers of Donbass because they were under threat of, the evil, Ukrainian Nazis that were coming to defeat them. And yet that was Putin's justification. So right now, Murray is undermining him taking the Russian side to this. He's completely undermining his own Russian side to this. If he is sort of more sympathetic to the Russian side of this, yeah, I must protect Russians from the imaginary Ukrainians. Yeah, you're right. It was his entire justification for the war. what what do we what are we meant to take away from that? It would be funny to see if Murray acknowledges that. And maybe we'll have to jump back to this. So remember, guys, the right to defend doctrine is illegal, and shouldn't be really used, and should be heavily suspected from being used. So remember that, because that might come up later. So just put it on your chalkboards for later, in case it comes up. Tiller, how long will it take Murray to realize that Galloway is only interested in lining his own pockets? Who knows? Who knows? We'll find out soon, I think. Anyway, let's continue on this. So that is the theme of my book, The Catholic Orangemen of Togo. Okay, strange title for a book, but there you go. I'm sure it makes sense if you read it. Anyway, here we go. The causes of the Russian invasion of Ukraine are plain. Let's find out how plain these reasons are. So, first of all, alarm at NATO expansion and forward positioning of aggressive military assets encircling Russia. Strange how Putin said quite some time ago that if Ukraine wanted to join NATO, it was up to them. And bear in mind, a lot of these countries joined NATO, and initially the Eastern countries initially joined NATO because they were worried about the exact thing. And it has been the aggressiveness of Russia charging into Chechnya, charging into Georgia, Crimea, the invasion of Ukraine itself, that has sparked The expansion of NATO is not based on anything because they have somehow been forced or coerced into joining NATO. No country can do that. No country can just force people to join NATO. These countries all joined NATO because they were worried about what they were seeing Russia do. So again, be interesting to put that question to Craig Murray. Anyway, the Ukrainian coup of 2014. It wasn't a coup as such. It was an overthrowing of a leader that they didn't trust and was doing some really, really dodgy stuff in trying to suppress those protests that were going on. The employing of a band of thugs to try and police these. Again, all this heavily covered, heavily documented. This was not a coup. This was a revolution that took place against the current Ukrainian government. They overthrew him. And since then, there have been 2 democratic votes in Ukraine since that supposed, quote, coup. We'll see. Pasta bake in the oven, made yourself a drink, and I'll leave you to the video. I'll come back and check on my sanity in about half an hour. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how far I go. Oh, Michael Warner. Yeah, a coup is just an unsuccessful revolution. Or in this case, it's just a successful revolution, you know? So already, 2 very, very shaky, well, basically non-causes for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Let's see what else it is. The exasperation at Ukraine's bad faith in ignoring the Minsk Accords. Ignoring the Minsk Accords. Who actually broke more of the Minsk Accords? Who didn't actually follow the Minsk Accords themselves as soon as they were implemented and said, "Oh, don't worry, we fully intend to follow the Minsk Accords, but we're just keeping, our stuff here." Just because we feel like Ukraine isn't following the Minsk Accords. So the Ukrainians in return went, "Well, okay, once you move your stuff, we'll move our stuff. Until then." So remember, it was not the Ukrainians who broke the Minsk Accords. It was Russia who broke the Minsk Accords time and time and time again. So again, a third reason is complete nonsense. So you're now 3 for 3 for why Russia invaded Ukraine. And by the way, once again, propping up that wonderful Putin propaganda. Congratulations to you, Mr. Craig Murray, former UK diplomat to Uzbekistan. And I say that because you'd think someone like that, someone with that at least pedigree would know more, would be willing to actually, talk about that stuff, would be at least be willing to engage on that stuff, would know about that stuff, but apparently not. Apparently not. Oh dear. Oh dear. And bear in mind, we're still barely started. This is a long article. I don't think I'm going to keep my sanity by the end of this, and I'm already at that point of looking. I'm already pretty low on my first bottle. I only bought 2 because I thought I could need a drink tonight on this. Maybe I'll just buy 2. No, turns out I needed more than that. Pray for me, people. Pray for me. this is just going to get worse and worse, isn't it? It really is. So, and his final one, the continuing death toll of shelling of Russian speakers in the Donbass. Prior to the Ukrainian war, well, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, most people spoke Russian. I was in a couple of years ago, prior to all this, in Riga, in Latvia. Most people in Latvia speak Russian. That is because of some very, very historical reasons about the Russian colonialism, where they almost wiped out the Latvian language. It is very rare to still hear it spoken. They are trying to undo that damage. If there is shelling in the Donbass and you are saying a Russian speaker or a Russian speaking civilian is going to be hit by that shelling from a country that was brutally colonized by Russia to force these people to speak Russian, who do you think is going to be the casualties here? Because you can almost guarantee there is going to be a very high civilian casualty rate of, Russian speakers in a country of people who speak Russian. All four of those reasons of why Russia had to invade Ukraine, absolute nonsense. And if Mr. Murray seriously believes that, well, I honestly don't know what to say in response to those. What can you say? What can you say in response to that? Anyway, I'm gonna have to look for the chat forum because that's just my word. Anyway, Michael, when you're done with Russia, can you update us on Trump's latest legal dramas? I'm confused. Who knows? I think this might be the rest of this evening's stream because we've barely scratched the surface. We've barely scratched the surface of this blog. I'd love to as a break, maybe, but we'll see. We'll see. Craig, I mean, Russian soldiers and insurgents do speak Russian, so technically they are Russian speakers. Exactly. I mean, are you going to count the casualty rate of that? Michael, so if you speak Russian or Russia can invade your country. Yep. Pretty much that is what the justification is. That is why a lot of people have been very, very alarmed in the Baltic countries ever since this happened in 2018. Martin, good evening to you. Never heard of him, but now just reading the Wikipedia page on him. Yeah, like I say, this guy Craig Murray, former diplomat and former ambassador actually to Uzbekistan, meant to be someone previously of someone who was like, quite high up and respected in sort of, diplomatic circles. Apparently not anymore, because he decided he was going to run for George Galloway's party. And of course, if you're going to run for George Galloway's party, you've got to accept the notion that, well, it's not Russia's fault that it invaded Ukraine, as we've just seen here. No, it's all either NATO's fault or Ukraine's fault. And, Russia just had to invade Ukraine. And now, he's had to do this massive, massive U-turn. Or a Ukrainian U-turn, I suppose is the best way to call it. And honestly, so far, barely scratched the surface of the blog. Complete tool. What a complete tool. I could use harsher language, but I'd probably get censored by YouTube. I don't want that to happen at the moment. So, yeah. When are you pagan? An invading force needs to be at least 3 times that of the defending one. This means, in all likelihood, that the Russians are dying was always going to be very high. This guy is an idiot, as we previously stated. Yeah. He's an absolute idiot. Craig. It wasn't their fault. NATO spilled their drink, and the Ukrainians picked a fight with them. Yeah. Cannon's power. Galloway shouldn't be allowed out of his basement, let alone into other countries. Oh, I wish. I wish. I wish. Oh, I wish, but never mind. Anyway, let's continue with this, shall we? So, the suppression of the Russian language. Okay, another Russian propaganda lie there, that the Russian language, why did I use air quotes? But that the Russian language in Ukraine was being suppressed. Bear in mind, big majority in Ukraine spoke Russian. After this war, I don't think so. I do not think so. Something I've said before on this channel, I think other people have said it before. This war, if anything, is uniting the Ukrainian people and them as an identity even more so than anyone could have previously thought. Like after this war, regardless of whatever happens, I can guarantee you the use of Russian in Ukraine will drop like a stone. Because at the start of this war, there was an incident of like these Russians invading, these like Ukrainian citizens like throwing stones and etc. And one of the people was like, right, that's it. I'm gonna learn to speak Ukrainian. I do not want to speak Russian ever again. That seems to be the main sentiment to a lot of people now. So but again, he's referring to a particular law we should talk about, because again, this is one of the quote big justifications that a lot of people like this like to throw about. So we actually have something very similar going on in the UK. So the whole idea was that after all this time, they want to sort of reestablish like Ukrainian language as like the main language. So if you went into a place of government, and this one was in particular what they were focusing on, it's the same in the UK as well. I wonder if the Welsh are suddenly going to rise up and invade us. But what essentially happens with this law is that your first language you speak to someone, or the forms you give across, are not in Russian, they're in Ukrainian. Because that is their main language. That is the language that they want to speak. If you want to file your taxes in Russian, you can still do that. No one was blocking them from doing that. But what they were saying was the first sort of forms that you are going to get are going to be in Ukrainian. The first language you are going to encounter if you walked into sort of a government building was going to be Ukrainian. They were not suppressing the Russian language. That is false, because if that's true, well, then once again, the Baltic states, who also have very similar language laws, again, in order to try and sort of bring back their own traditional language, are also doing this as well. So Does Putin now get to invade the Baltic states as well? Sounds like it, if he's going to, quote, defend Russian speakers. You see why every single argument that is trotted out by these people to defend Russia for this war and the atrocities and the war crimes we've committed. And bear in mind, Murray hasn't even said a thing about the crimes committed by the Russians throughout all of this yet. Be interesting to see if he even mentions that. I doubt he's going to, but we'll see. We're still barely scratching the surface of this book yet. I'm already running low. Oh no. Anyway, we'll see. Anyway, Counter's power. I'm a bit of a tank nerd, I've got to say. Considering the claim to be a superpower, the Russian armed forces are pretty poorly armed and maintained. This is why they're using more artillery. Yep. Even Lukashenko didn't really want any part of Putin's war. Putin and his supporters should really read the room. Yep. Because the Belarusian military was like, we ain't going into that. We ain't getting involved in that. So, although he did also quite hilariously leak the rest of the plan for this war. So thank you very much, Lukashenko. Thank you for being, constant genius, unveiling the full plan of the invasion plan of the Russians. Smart move there. Until that, Galloway's party doesn't even have any members, only subscribers. Who do not have any voting rights. Galloway appointed himself leader for life. Yep. Like I say, Galloway's party, crazy. Like I say, you're right. You ain't a member, you're a subscriber. And you've got no choice but to accept Galloway's leadership. No choice at all. So there you go. Proper democratic party there. Anyway, let's get back to this, shall we? So, so the suppression of the Russian language, of the Russian Orthodox religion. No one was suppressing the Russian Orthodox religion. In fact, what you have seen is because of this war, the Ukrainian part of the Orthodox religion split from the Russian one because they did not like the fact that the Russian Orthodox religion was endorsing the invasion of Ukraine because, well, the Russian Orthodox religion is pretty much in Putin's pocket, something he uses to keep and sort of varnish his power. No one was suppressing the Russian Orthodox religion because there now is a Ukrainian Orthodox religion, mostly because of this war. They split because you're endorsing invading this country. We can't get behind that. Sorry, we're out. We're having our own Orthodox split here now, guys. That's probably not going to come back. And of course, the main pro-Russian opposition political party in Ukraine are simple facts. You are fighting a war. You are fighting a war. Why on earth would you be suddenly okay with having, I don't know, let's say during World War II, there was like a pro-Germany party during that. Do you think we would have allowed a pro-Germany party to exist during World War II? World War I even? No. That's a normal thing that happens during most wars. If there is a party, in particular, there was in Ukraine, a very pro-Russian party, although they've had to actually drop that now and drop that completely from their party political platform. They still do exist, but they were not as strong as they used to be because, well, the war. Yeah, they have been very, very distrusted. They've been booted out of power because you can't trust a party whose main political agenda was, we are pro-Russian, we're going to do what the Russians say because, that's going to be cool for Ukraine. Yeah. Are you going to keep these people as part of your government? No country would during a war. So, yeah, Craig. To be fair, a man like man with tanky style beliefs, Galloway doesn't really like democracy. Once he's making decisions, yep. Russian police breast the tanks, yep. The Ukrainian police, the Ukrainian priests breast the tractors, and the tractors won. So I'm guessing that says something. Yep, that does say a lot. To be fair, Reform UK is set up the same way. Yep, it is. Duke Vengeance, good evening. Hello to you. Yes, the Russians aren't doing well on that tank front. Apparently, their new tank is a complete letdown. Yep. There's an entire Laserpig video about the T-14 Armata. Go check that out. Martin, Russians killed 15 and injured 34 aid workers last year. Yep. Again, the idea that somehow like Russia is a morally like correct nation and that what they're doing is complete moral and just in Ukraine, complete fabrication. Anyone who says that you know, just don't listen to them anymore. Unsubscribe from them and just leave them be. Just leave them be. And call them an idiot, call them a tanky. Just leave them be. But unfortunately for me, this is what I do. So, you know, I gotta cover people like this, unfortunately. And it's painful. It's so painful. But anyway, good evening. Good evening to you, the funk penny, the Funkle Penny. So good evening to you. Anyway, let's crack on with this then, shall we? So wary. So yes. So these are simple facts. These I have always acknowledged until I saw the positive enthusiasm for leaders of the Western states for the massacre in Gaza. I don't really think you can say there was anyone in the West who was like pro like this. Again, would be interesting to see what be interesting to see what he thought that actually meant. Yep, the article seems to be longer than the Tolstoy piece. Well, yeah, like I say, this guy's going to justify his Ukrainian U-turn, Colin. He's going to massively justify this. Like I say, this is a U-turn you can see from space. Anyway, back to this. I was not convinced that they could not have been addressed by diplomacy and negotiation. Now I have to reassess that view in the light of new information, and I now think Putin was justified in the invasion. No. It really does not justify. Does not justify saying I disagree. I do not like what's going on in Gaza. I don't like what's going on in Gaza, but I haven't suddenly performed a giant U-turn saying, you know what, guys, that Putin fella's got a lot of right ideas about invading Ukraine. I'm sorry, doesn't work like that, Craig. Doesn't work that way at all. This guy is having to jump through some serious mental hoops to try and justify his U-turn. Serious mental hoops on this. Is this the very same Galloway who ran a platform of helping the Palestinians and didn't bother to turn up any debates about Gaza? Yep, the very same one. The very same one. Anyway, let's find out more why he thinks Putin is justified, shall we? So, it is not that any of the arguments are new. It's not that any of your arguments are right either. There you go. It is simply that before I did not believe that the West would sponsor mass ethnic cleansing and genocidal attack on the Donbass by extreme Ukrainian nationalized led Western armed forces. Where's your evidence that the Ukrainians are doing this? Where's your evidence that the Ukrainians are committing all these massacres, or that they intend um, to go and and massacre the people in Donbass? Where's your evidence, Craig? Because I'll tell you now, if that was the case, we would not be arming Ukraine to the teeth. Like, we would not be arming Ukraine. If that was the case, I think that we would not be arming Ukraine. Remember, it's Russia here that has committed war crimes in Mariupol that we've seen about. We don't know how big the death toll is in Mariupol, because Russia will not let people into Mariupol still. And they have bulldozed over hundreds of thousands of people and just buried them beneath piles of rubble, possibly with bodies never be able to either be recovered or maybe even identified in the future. We don't know, unfortunately. The Bucha massacre, the fact that you've had Ukrainians when they've been captured, what Wagner did, execution by sledgehammer. We've seen Ukrainians when they've been handed back from prisoner exchanges, told about how they are tortured in Russian captivity. The list goes on. But oh no, it's the Ukrainians. My God, this guy's jumping through some serious hoops. He's jumping through some serious hoops on this. Craig, if negotiations first involve justifying your own existence before you're allowed to have a position that involves saying no, I would be in any favor of negotiating than Ukraine was. Yep. Counterpower. Apparently, evidence is just overrated these days. It's just much easier to decide what quote side you're on than believe anything that side says, regardless of the evidence. Yep. Yep. This guy is this guy is performing such a massive U-turn. You can see this from space. Honestly, you thought you could see the Great Wall from space. Turns out you can see Craig Murray from space. It's that big. It's that big, this U-turn. Yep. Your evidence is you're trying to cancel my feelings. Yeah. Just because of what is going on in Gaza does not mean you should just suddenly start becoming like pro-Russian. Just, what on earth? What on earth is this argument so far? Anyway. So I thought, quote, the West, in quotation marks, was more civilized than that. I now have to face the fact that I was wrong about the character of NATO powers. You have not provided any evidence about these extremist, nationalist-led Ukrainians. But I don't think we're going to see any in this blog. Do you, readers? I don't think we are. Stay tuned. Stay tuned, readers. Craig, thank you very much. He's giving all Craigs a bad name. Oh, he is. He is very, very much. But thank you very much for your super chat there, Craig. Thank you very much. In a very ratty, annoying voice, facts don't care about your feelings, man. I'm sure going into fields instead of actual evidence was a province of the right and not the left. Yep. Well, apparently anyone can do it these days if you want to try and justify some crazy U-turn into going and fully supporting the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And like I say, Martin, if you're here, you've seen his Wikipedia page. Go and check it out. His Wikipedia page. This is a guy who has a history of being like someone who was like considered pretty much like not like the top of his game, but like one of the people you would go to. This was a guy who was on, sought out for TV interviews. He's written books about international diplomacy and etc. All this gone because he wants to go and run for George Galloway's party. So he's had to perform the most biggest U-turn in probably diplomatic history. This is embarrassing. Like this is really embarrassing. Like Craig Murray should feel like really embarrassed. Like really, really embarrassed. Like by what he's written so far. I mean, I don't know what he's getting out of this, but I hope it's worth it. I hope it's worth it trashing your own reputation like this. So, the alternative to Putin's action probably was indeed massacre and ethnic cleansing. Except you have to provide evidence that that's what was going to happen. And that never was going to happen. There's no evidence of that happening. That is Russian propaganda. That's one of their Putin's reason or his bogus reasons for justifying this invasion. The urgent need now is for negotiation to put an end to the war. What's this negotiation going to be? Be very interested to see what Craig Murray would say on that front. On that position, it has not changed. The war is a disaster for the people of Europe. The American destruction of the Nord Stream has devastated the German. Wait a minute, the American destruction of Nord Stream. No evidence, by the way. No evidence at all that America destroyed the Nord Stream pipeline. There's no evidence. And here's the thing: we are now buying, or at least Europe has now changed from Russian oil and gas, and has, if anything, led to a more rapid greening, or at least green energying. I don't know. That's a word, right? just put an ing on the end; it'll be fine. Just put it, a green energying of Europe. It has led to a faster acceleration of that. Now that they're still using a lot of liquid gas. Norway massively benefiting from this. America as well, selling more of that LNG to Europe. However, this has also led to a lot of Europe now rapidly trying to expand their own green energy supplies and make sure they've got energy independence away from Russia. Because, Russia, completely honest broker when it came to energy, right? Completely honest broker. Russia would never turn the gas off during like the deepest part of winter for a country, right? In order to try and affect some sort of political change, right? Right? It would never dump a load of grain onto the European market in order to sort of encourage some sort of economic crisis for farmers, right? Yeah, Russia, totally a good actor, right, guys? Totally. Russia has done both of those things, by the way. And if anything, who gets most from destroying the Nord Stream pipeline? It's Russia, ultimately, at the end of the day. But there you go. Tom, just checking in on my sanity. Still surviving at this point, just about. Oh. Duke Vengeance. I mean, I stopped drinking, but that's only because I keep setting off my heartburn. I mean, well, you say that. I might have to go get more booze in a bit. In fact, I'm probably going to have to. If we're going to make it through this, I need to go get my other bottle, or else I don't think we're really going to make it through this. Anyway, let's finish off at least in a good place. Where were we? So the American, again, I'll put it in air quotes, American destruction of Nord Stream has devastated the German economy and resulted in huge energy price inflations for all customers across Europe, including the UK. That was a step and jump to the food inflation, which has not been pulled back. And again, that has been because of the war. Who started that war? That was because of Russia. So we've put sort of got a nice little break here. I'm gonna have to go get another drink because I don't think I'm going to survive. I do not think I'm going to survive this. So do stay tuned. I am going to go get another drink because, oh my, oh my, if I am to get through this, I'm going to need another drink at this point. So yeah, I'm going to go run and get another drink. Don't go anywhere, but please do click the like and share button on your way back. Because, oh boy. Wow. Talk about the utter complete destruction of someone who had at least considerably, or at least was considered to have quite some sort of eminent diplomatic reputation in that field. I suppose he's just put all that up in flames, but hey, there you go. I'd say, I hope he's going to get something out of this. Hope he's going to get something out of this because I don't know what he gets out of this except a completely ruined and trashed reputation. Anyway, I'm going to go get a drink. And yes, I will see you back in a couple of moments. So I'm going to put this on the loop and we'll see you in a moment. We're back. Anyway, we're back. Oh boy. Oh boy. So, we're here until we're finished. We're here until we're finished. But yes, let me at least allow a brief diversion. Good evening to all those who've joined us through all this. Welcome to what honestly I can only sum up as someone who has taken their entire career, poured gasoline over it, and just flicked a match and just gone up in flames. Like I say, I hope it's worth running for this party, Craig. I really hope it is for you, because I don't see what you get out of it. But no, good evening to the rest of you joining us this evening. Like I say, please do remember to click on the like and share button. Like I say, it helps get more people in chat, etc. So we'll see what happens with this, but oh boy. Anyway, I have acquired a new drink. We are now reloaded. Because, oh boy. That's from Punator. Good evening to you, Punator, as well. Punator, so it's basically David Cameron when allowing the EU referendum. Wow. Wow. When riding, she just off the offer with the suitcase. I'll give you my order so you can come bring me back something. I don't know how long this will last either. We'll try and make it last a bit longer. When I pagan, the social/cultural I can't even say that word. The cultural I can't even say it now. I'm just completely lost my teeth. Can't even say it. The complete cultural shift is just spinning up some really weird and deranged speakers. That it is. That it is. I agree with you. This whole thing in Ukraine has had some really weird people back it. I've talked before about the Stop the War coalition. I think they're really bad at what they talk about Ukraine as well. I've done a couple of videos about them before, about their nonsense that they spout about the war in Ukraine. Yeah. But yes, we'll get back to this. Paradigm, that's it. Paradigm, that's it. I can say it finally. Paradigm. Oh. Counter power, I'm smashed. I only had one bottle. It's not the bottle, it's just this, because I'm sorry, this is quite easily the most ridiculous thing I have ever read about this. Everything so far is it's basically Putin's propaganda or Russian propaganda to justify their invasion of Ukraine. He says he has evidence, hasn't presented any evidence of his decision. Just take him at his word, guys. Total, all this really, this entire, Russia invading Ukraine, just Russia. It's just Ukraine's fault and NATO's fault. Nothing to do with the machinations of Vladimir Putin whatsoever. This is simply the most weirdest thing I've seen in a long time, and justification on this. When I read Pagan, have you watched Vosh Destroy the Russia Files? I have. In fact, probably one of the most recent ones is I've seen that's very good is Lonabox and Dylan Burns tag teamed someone who is a Russian apologist very recently, not that too long ago. Very, very entertaining to see them squirm where they're being, consulted with facts about what's going on in Russia. Bear in mind, using some of the same justification this guy's using here of, well, what's going on in Gaza really bad, so guess we have to support Putin now, guys. No, 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 you don't. You can disagree entirely with what's going on in Gaza and still be like, yeah, no, what Russia's doing in Ukraine is bad. Like they should not be there. It is their fault. They launched a war of aggression here. Ukraine is not the aggressor here. I think that should be very, very plain with for people who have basic eyes. Um, you know, pretty good on that. Anyway, we've got to get back to this. Got to get back to this. So the continuation of this war will, of course, prime the pump for the military-industrial complex. Shock horror. Companies that make weapons make money during conflict. Shock horror. Shock horror. Anyway, massive defense spending is the most efficient way to ensure the kickbacks to the political class who control the flow of the state funds through both legal and illegal forms corruption and rewarded to politicians. Well, if there is corruption in this, and you do know that, I don't know, there's a whole process of reporting such corruption. If you have evidence of this, I would encourage Craig Murray to go and expose this this corruption apparently that's meant to be taking place, with our government and the military-industrial complex. I mean, uncover it, expose it. But of course he won't, because he hasn't got any evidence to it. But there you go. Yeah, Captain's power. Does he hell? If he had evidence, he'd share it. Yeah, exactly. So where are we? So as Julian Assange said, why are you bringing Julian Assange into this? I don't know. The object is not to win wars. The object is forever wars, to keep the funds flowing. Well, Biden ended the war in Afghanistan. Got to give him that. You say what you will about Biden, but at least he ended it. Hey, Trump also said he'd do the same as well. He didn't, but there you go. The truth is that the longer this war persists, the less generous Russia will be over returning the occupied territories to Ukraine. Why should we have to rely on the generosity of Russia? Here's the thing. I think at some point, somehow, and I can't really say how much territory Russia is going to keep. I think in some way, form, this will end with Russia keeping some form of territory. But I'll tell you now, it's going to be a problem for Putin and for Russia, because there's already partisans behind the lines blowing up buildings, supply lines, train tracks, committing assassinations. That's only going to increase post this war. And if anything, I think that the rest of the Ukraine is going to encourage it to destabilize those regions and just make them not worth holding. I'd say, I'd encourage that as well. Go for it. Go for it. Just make that territory, just render it completely useless. Oh no, Martin. Oh no. Oh no. Murray and Assange are friends according to Wikipedia. Oh no. Well, it is Wikipedia, so he could have just edited that himself. Where me and Julian Assange, we're best buddies. Here's me totally not photoshopped at Julian Assange's wedding. Or here's Julian Assange totally not photoshopped at my wedding. Yeah, again, Wikipedia, yeah, take it with a grain of salt. But honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. Would not surprise me, Martin. Would not surprise me in the least if that was true. Anyway, Where were we? So Russia will be less generous in returning occupied territory to Ukraine. The deal, which was torpedoed by the again, this was not torpedoed by the West. And in truth, the US played more of a role than Boris Johnson. I was actually there in Turkey. Boris Johnson did not go to Turkey. The Ukrainians did not decide to take this deal because they saw what was going on in Bucha. They realized they could not trust Russia because they have been here before. They've done Minsk 1, Minsk 2, even the agreements to give up their nuclear weapons back in the 90s was predicated on Russian promises that they would not use military or economic coercion on Ukraine. Except that has happened. And of course, Russia broke Minsk 1, they broke Minsk 2. What reason do the Ukrainians have to trust Russia? One of the big things that the Ukrainians really want out of this is that they want future security guarantees. They want to make sure that if Russia ever comes back, there's going to be guarantees. It would not shock me. It would not shock me in potentially a post-war environment. We saw if Ukraine does not join NATO, would not shock me if we saw American bases set up in Ukraine. So I'll tell you now, Russia ain't going into Ukraine if those bases are there. Oh no. Oh no. But we'll see what happens when this war ends. And like all wars, it will end sooner or later. But we'll see how this ends out. What the peace ends up sort of being. But we'll see what happens. So where are we? So I was there in Turkey. When the West nearly 2 years ago ceded only Crimea to the Russians. That's not true. That Russia actually wanted more. With that, they also pushed the whole thing with the Donbass as well, but they pushed back from Mariupol by a little group called Azov, which is why they hate Azov so much. But there you go. With a Minsk Plus deal for the Donbass, which would have remained Ukrainian. Except, no, it would not have remained Ukrainian. What would have happened, or at least this deal that we know that was being pushed, the deal was that Donbass would become a autonomous state in Ukraine, basically making it easier for it to just suddenly just stop and just go, we're joining Russia now. We're having our own separatist referendum, or if Ukraine tries to stop us, well, they're the ones defying the democratic will of the people. Yeah. We know what was pushed in that deal. The other deal that was also pushed was the massive defanging of the Ukrainian military. They would have kept, if they'd agreed to these terms, they would have had none. They would have had no tanks, practically. I think they would have had like 5. It's something like a really small amount. Less than 100 artillery pieces. Less than, I think, 80,000 people in arms, like in permanent combat units. Like what they wanted to on purpose was to weaken Ukraine so that, hey, we can come back and do this again. And tell you what, it's going to be a lot easier. The only problem is this time the Ukrainians fought back harder than they were expecting. And this is where we are now because of that. So, yeah, the idea that the Ukrainians should have agreed to this deal, it would have all have ended. No, it would have basically just assured that there would have been another invasion a couple of years down the line. And then if that had happened, it would have been funny to see people like Craig Murray try and justify the other reasons why you don't understand that after this Minsk Plus, well, Russia had to invade again. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, we're setting up our own state with blackjack hookers and Russian troops. Oh. Punator, Bola Hatman. I think a likely end to the Ukraine war is that Biden wins in November, then Putin's successor, realizing the country is screwed, does Father Time's work and acts like it was him by. Well, we can hope. We can hope that is potentially a way this shakes out. Because if Putin does, well, tumble from a window, as is the fashion in Russia to get rid of people, yeah, any potential successor, I think, would be very foolish to continue this war in Ukraine, because you are seeing more and more problems appear for Russia. This whole terrorist attack, for example, that happened. Russia still trying to say that it was Ukraine. Meanwhile, and this is the best part, Iran comes out and says, "Oh no, we found out through doing our own intelligence gathering, separate from that of the American and the Western intelligence. Also found out about this attack and also warned Russia." You've even got ISIS-K on their social media blogs and etc. releasing footage they could only have if they had done the attack, and yet Russia had to be Ukraine. Like I say, this attack makes Putin looks really, really weak, and all it's going to take is something like Dagestan rising up. Like if something happens, it's going to be somewhere like Dagestan. And bear in mind, just a couple of weeks ago, we saw recruitment riots, like people on the streets attacking recruiters, trying to forcefully conscript people. And I can guarantee you, if something big like that happens, it's going to be in somewhere like Dagestan, or it'll be one of the other Caucasus states. And once something starts there, it's going to spread like wildfire, because we saw what happened with the Wagner coup, or its attempted Wagner coup. There was nothing stopping them. They had an absolute clear run to Moscow. And if they hadn't stopped, who knows what could have happened. But even more, maybe you might get another mutiny. It's not like Russian morale is exactly that high, considering the losses that they are constantly taking. 17,000 troops just to take Avdiivka, a tiny town, roughly about the same size as my own hometown, which is strategically very unimportant. 17,000 to take that. We'll see. But yeah, it's this war is not going to end in a quote clean victory. I think for either side. In that. Punator, I think NATO is now waiting to see the results of the Ukrainian election. If Trump wins, they might become more forceful. If it's Biden, they'll be likely, well, Daddy can sort you out. About the nasty bully, please. Probably. Like I say, I do hope so as well. I hope that Biden does win. That will certainly set the stage for this. The Russians have said they are only prepared to fight until 2025. Ukraine has said they are prepared to fight as long as they needed. And if anything, these sanctions that are on them at the moment are bringing them very much to their knees. Their economy is not in the best of shape. When Angry Pagan, so the next 5 years are going to be very interesting. I had no idea just how correct it would be. Yep. No one expected, to be honest, a lot of this, but there you go. Where were we? So here it is. So Donbass will remain Ukraine. That is now unthinkable. The major question is how large a coastal corridor Russia will insist on keeping westward from Crimea, and whether Putin can be persuaded to accept less than the historical dividing line of the Dnieper. Why do we need to persuade him? We basically just go, as long as you keep that territory in Ukraine, those sanctions are staying in place. Good luck. That's what we should be like. I think, regardless, however this keeps out, as so long as Putin or Russia keeps Ukrainian territory, we should just go sanctions. I think we should be very, very clear about that. Very, very clear about that. That so long as he keeps any Ukrainian territory, sanctions, and that will just cripple his economy. It's crippling his economy now. He's in a war economy, but even now it's a very war economy. But there you go. So I do not share the Russian triumphalism at the dwindling manpower resources of Ukraine. What about the dwindling manpower resources of Russia? You know, they've lost a lot more casualties than Ukraine in this. With the obscene billions the West is now pumping into very remote warfare in Ukraine, this is not a factor you might expect, but political will of the West will continue to pump in these billions, plainly sapping as it becomes obvious that there will be no successful Ukrainian offensive. Put simply, Russia will outlast its opponents. This old chestnut. Russia will just outlast its opponents, guys. Really, at the rate they are losing men, they have lost more men than the Soviet Union did in Afghanistan. Russia has lost more men than the entire occupation of Afghanistan and Iraq. Like, them doing this was just not good. Not only that, as I said, there is only going to be, more and more sanctions put onto them. And bear in mind, this summer, I feel like we should do some sort of trailer. Coming this summer, the F-16 comes to Ukraine, and that is going to be a very big game changer. A very big game changer, because let me tell you what's going to happen. Along with the F-16 that the Ukrainians are going to get again this summer, is what they call a seed weapon. And a seed weapon was used to very much great effect when NATO was in Bosnia. So the Russians know all about these seed weapons, because what happens is that they launch this missile. Russian anti-air has to turn on its radar. The seed weapon loiters in the air, gets pinged by that radar, and goes. Russia is not going to have much anti-air defense on the front line. And if they do that, that is a big, big advantage for Ukraine. If they can push back the Russian anti-air defense, if we can set up a actual good, proper delivery system and things like the HIMARS system, if we can get more Storm Shadows to them, then all of a sudden, lots more of their supply lines, the supply hubs, the railways, the Kerch Bridge becomes a lot easier to hit. And that gives Ukraine a big advantage because Ukraine has had big victories against Russia. Remember, it's retaken over 50% of its territory that Russia took. Like, that's not insignificant. And a smaller force can win against a more bigger force. History has shown that time and time again. There are numerous examples. So you're swallowing the Kool-Aid by thinking that Russia can just outlast its enemies. No, it can't. No, it can't. Its economy is coasting along at best. It is having massive, massive losses that you cannot hide, that you are going to see big, big repercussions for in the future. Russia's already having a major demographics issue. This isn't helping. So we'll see. But I tell you now, I say there is no going to be, I think, a clear victory in this war. I think there are going to be conditions for victory, but I don't think we're going to see it as in a traditional sense. Anyway, where are we? So put simply, Russia can simply outlast opponents. This has always been the case that sooner or later, Ukraine and the West will settle. The better the deal, the better the deal that they will get. And this is much more truer every day. But by prolonging the war in the end itself, to those who will make money from it. No, if anything, what happens is Ukraine goes into any negotiated situation with a far, far stronger hand. That's why Ukraine is continuing to fight. And ultimately, they're prepared to fight until the bitter ends because they know what's at risk. What Russia gains from this is a territory that is going to be incredibly difficult to incorporate into their territory. They've already got partisans. You don't think that people are going to go, well, I'm going to go across the border and do some sort of, partisan activity against Russian forces there or pro-Russian people in that territory? They can take, but holding is a different matter. Anyway, Putin's historical discussion to Tucker Carlson opened some Western eyes to another national perspective and given rise to widespread claims by Western media that Putin was factually wrong. In fact, almost all of his facts were correct. The interpretation, so it was just the interpretation, right? Okay, Putin was right. It's just, you've just got to interpret the fact that he was right. That the position of the other facts which were omitted or to give less weight of his course is the art of history. There is no question I find more fascinating in history than the formation and than the dissolution of national identities. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Is he going to sort of say that Ukraine doesn't exist as a national identity? That's Russian propaganda. That needs to drink. Oh dear. So, pardon me. So, Murray's perspective on this is that there is no subject on which is more important to try and understand. The vantage point of one person's writing is governed by two factors in particular. Firstly, I'm a Scot and came from one of Europe's oldest nation states, which was then lost its independence and then struggles to regain it after being submerged in a new British national identity. Secondly, as a former diplomat, I have lived and worked in a political field in a number of countries with very differing histories of national identity. These include Poland, a national identity state, which is which is national identity state, which is Norman, Norman Davis brilliantly quipped, quote, has emerged from time to time through the mist of histories, but never quite in the same place twice. I think lots of Polish people would disagree with you on that, but there you go. This includes Guyana. So also thinks that, Venezuela should take Guyana. There you go. This includes Guyana, a state with an extremely strong sense of national identity, which was built off an entirely artificial colonial creation. It'll be interesting to see what he actually thinks, whether Venezuela does get to just annex Guyana. Would surprise me if he does. This includes Nigeria, another entirely artificial colonial collation, which has now struggled enormously to try and build a national identity against the deep, often violent ethnic and cultural differences. This also includes Uzbekistan, a country which also has an entirely artificial colonial borders, but which the West, quote, left and failed to recognize as an ex-colony because they refused to acknowledge the Soviet Union was a continuation of the Russian Empire. There you go. I think we can see where this is going. think we can see where this is going. Oh dear. So I have seen all this, and as someone with training and an interest as a historian who's read a great deal of the Eastern European history, I've also lived in Russia and was for a time both fluent in Russian and Polish speaker. I do not write this to claim that I am right, but so that you know this was what has formed my view. And I think your view is still very wrong, even if you have that background. Still do not justify this at all. But you are now going to sort of, I suppose, now try and dispute the idea of Ukraine. let's see how it goes on this. Putin argued at great length there was never such a country as Ukraine. The BBC has run a quote fact check and claimed that this is nonsense. Yeah, the BBC is right. The Ukrainian identity has existed goes back quite a long way. But there you go. There are several points to be made about this. First is that the BBC did not claim, as it claimed, to quote, go independent historians. It went to Polish, Ukrainian, and Armenian historians with their very own distinct agenda. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, we went to these Polish, Ukrainian, and Armenian historians, and this is what they had to say. But they didn't go to independent historians. I love it. I love it. Doesn't matter what a historian has said because if it's a Scottish historian, guess they don't count because they're not an independent historian. Love it. Love it. What a lunatic. What a lunatic. So the second is that these historians did not actually take issue with Putin's facts. Again, playing semantics I see here. So, for a fact check, it does not really examine any of Putin's historical facts at all. What the historians did was put forward other facts that they felt deserve more weight. That's what you do in history. That's how we measure things in history. But there you go. Or even different interpretations of those facts referenced by Putin. Yes, because you cannot trust Putin's interpretation because his interpretation is incredibly pro-Russia and, oh, look, that territory I now get to get because, after all, that was Russian in the past. Guess Ukrainians haven't got anything to say about that. But again, we've argued this before that this whole history thing is so so ridiculous. So ridiculous, because now can we just claim like islands? After all, we owned it in the past. Do we get to claim it? Do we get to claim like the eastern seaboard of America? We had that in the past. Canada, can we have that back as well? Australia, New Zealand, all our former colonies. India, we owned that back in the past. This is just such a ridiculous argument, arguing from this point of view. But there you go. Craig Murray, everyone. A U-turn so big you can see it from space. Anyway, where were we? Some more interpretations, but none argued convincingly for the former existence of a Ukrainian national state or even the long-term existence of Ukrainian national identity. Here's the thing. Let's give Murray this. Let's actually give him that he is right, that there is no such thing as like a long-term Ukrainian identity. Let's give him that for a second. Does this still justify the Russian invasion of Ukraine? No. There we are. Job done. just oh. In fact, their arguments are largely consistent with Putin. The BBC quoted Professor Ronald Sunny. I thought you said these weren't independent historians. Anyway, Mr. Sunny points out the inhabitants of these lands, when they were conquered by Russia, were neither Russians nor Ukrainians, but Ottoman Tsar or Cossack, Slavic peasants who had fled to the frontiers. Which is undoubtedly true. 18th century Russia did not conquer a territory called, quote, Ukraine. Much of the land of Ukraine was under Muslim rule when it was conquered by Catherine the Great, and nobody called themselves Ukrainian. But the BBC then gave this quote. Again, all this doesn't matter. Historically, fascinating, I'm sure. Still not does justify the invasion of Ukraine and them doing this. But Anita Palgozdev, I think that's how you say it, a professor eminent at the LES, says that although the national consequences emerged later among Ukrainians and other Central European nations, there were Ukrainians during this period. Vladimir Putin is using a 20th century concept of a state based on the protection of a divine nation as something that goes back. It doesn't, which is hardly accusing Putin of speaking nonsense. She really is, in that very quote you gave. Either Prigozhin admits that the development of Ukrainian national consciousness came later than other Central European states, which is very definitively true. Parzona herself has a very Central European take. The idea of a nation state in England, Scotland, and France, for example, developed well ahead of the period of which she was speaking. Again, even if you accept that everything he said, that you give him that historical argument, does this still justify the Russian invasion of Ukraine? No, it absolutely does not justify the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Putin is trying everything he can to try and justify his invasion and that it's all going to be fine. Guess what? Doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Otherwise, there's a ton of stuff we can just claim ownership of. Yep. Technically, Ukraine can claim the whole of Russia. After all, they are the original Russians. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. These things are just completely ridiculous, but there you go. Tom, Kiev had an Orthodox patriarch long before Moscow. Does that mean that there is no such thing as Russian? Exactly. This whole historical argument, while fascinating, even if you give this argument to Murray, does this still justify the Russian invasion of Ukraine? No, not one bit. Not one bit. But again, he is trying as hard as he can to jump through some serious hoops to try and justify him switching positions on this invasion of Ukraine, that he now supports it wholeheartedly. There you go. So he continues, I should address the weakness in Putin's narrative. Around the origins, at least, of World War II, Russian nationalists have great difficulty in accommodating the Hitler-Stalin pact into the narrative of the Great Patriotic War. And while Putin did briefly reference it, his attempt to blame World War II essentially on Poland was a very low point. But even here, there was historical truth to which that standard Western narrative ignores. Oh, no. Poland was not responsible for the Second World War, like Putin says. That is ridiculous, but there you go. The Radziecki Sigmy-led military dictatorship in Poland after the death of Piłsudski was not a pleasant regime. Putin was actually correct about Munich, that both the UK and France had asked Poland to allow the Soviet army to march through and bolster Czechoslovakia against Germany and Poland, but refused. Radziecki did not trust Stalin, and frankly, I don't blame him. But this is an example of part of Putin's narrative that completely countered and received the Western tradition. The most well-informed people in the West have no idea that this happened and is perfectly true. Yeah, the Polish did not trust Stalin because they just had a war against Russia to defend their territory against. And they knew that Stalin had ambitions to take Poland. Why should they, again, even if you just go, everything you say about history 100% true and accurate, how on earth does this then justify like the modern invasion of Ukraine by Russia? Doesn't justify it at all. It is Putin trying to find any single what we call casus belli, the reason for war, a war justification to justify his war. That is what he is trying to do. He's trying to justify it in any way he can. And all you are trying to do is be the Western idiot who goes, oh yeah, everything Putin was saying was exactly right and correct. Yeah, at this point, he's gone from performing a massive U-turn to being a massive Putin apologist. Massive Putin apologist. So, the fusing back then of the Ukrainian nationalism with Nazism and the atrocities of the Ukrainian nationalists in World War II, again, not just against Jews, but also the Poles and other minorities, was also perfectly true. Again, no one says that wasn't true, that wasn't a thing that happened. But I said at the beginning of the stream, it was very complicated. Most of these people who fought for, like I say, that the Nazis at that point did so out of the belief that they believed that in doing so, they would gain some freedom from the Soviet Union. That is why they did that. So, back to it. It is a simple and stark truth that there never was a Ukrainian state before 1991. Still, does not justify any Ukraine invasion. Again, you can say this all you want, doesn't justify a single Ukraine invasion. So, there just was not. The lands currently comprising Ukraine were at various times either under the Muslim Khans or the Ottomans or the Cossack Hermitans, possibly the closest thing to the Proto-Ukrainians, the Polish-Lithuanian Confederation, and the Russian Tsars. As I have stated on this blog before, the boundary between the Polish-Lithuanian and the Russian influence became very settled on the Dnieper. They have also published this map before, showing that history resonates throughout the current conflict. So what? still doesn't justify what Putin's done. Still doesn't justify anything that you've done. You are at this point really trying to, tickle Putin's ballsack. Yeah, this is embarrassing that he's trying to do this. This is so embarrassing. So embarrassing for this. But there you go. Anyway, I'm just gonna have a brief foray into the chat because I need a wee break from this because this is ridiculous. This whole thing. I'm sorry. This guy has performed a massive U-turn and he is doing anything he can to try and justify his U-turn to a point where he is now completely being a Putin apologist. Anyway. I still don't understand the STAD Streamlabs. I think Ollie needs to send me a link for the chat, but I'm still struggling to find out how it works. No need a simple Discord. Streamlabs is different. I use StreamYard, not Streamlabs. But yes, have you sent me anything? I don't know. Let me check because I'm terrible at checking Twitter now. I'm terrible at checking Twitter now. I mean, you can come on now if you want. One Angry Pagan. You can suffer with me. you can suffer with me if you want. Did you send me on Discord? Let me check. No. But if you fancy coming on, you're more than welcome to come and join me in this. It'll be interesting to say the least. Direct messages. No. Yep, StreamYard. What's my name on Discord? I think it's just Baller Hatman. Let me just. Yes. Baller Hatman. Let me just copy it. Put it in the chat. There you go. Little do you know, they're falling for my trap. They're falling for my trap. They have to come and suffer with me as well. Oh, I honestly, it is. There's got to be a lot of people asking why am I doing this? If this is so, if this is so like bad, like why am I doing this? Well, here's the thing. For someone like this guy who has a really good pedigree, like as a historical, well, not historical pedigree, but as someone who's like a track record of being a diplomat, this is a guy who carries a lot of credibility. If this guy came up to you and said, I'm a former diplomat of Uzbekistan, this is actually the reality of the Ukraine war, there's a fair few people who would turn around and go, oh, maybe that Craig Murray fellow's got a point. So this is why I am doing this. This is why I am doing this, because there will be people, be either George Galloway supporters or even finding Craig Murray for the first time. Maybe they went to an event and met, Craig Murray gave a speech. There is a video of Craig Murray doing a speech for the Workers' Party. and he's doing like a bit of a tour apparently in around Greater Manchester. Fascinating to go. I'd probably get kicked out very quickly. Um, but no, he is very, very much so on a side and has like a relatively you know like who are you to challenge his professionship, his idea that he is like this amazing character. This guy worked as a diplomat. Just because he worked in such a prominent position and was a prominent position for quite a while does not excuse the absolute Putin enabling, the nonsense, the complete U-turn, the spouting of like Russian propaganda at this point. He is literally ludicrously a fool, an idiot, and he should not be listened to. And I do believe, you need to put out videos, streams like this, calling out Craig Murray for this. The best thing was, I don't have it with me. Damn. I was going to have my private eye, but yeah, this is how I found out about Craig Murray, because it was in private eye, talking about he's having to do this massive U-turn on Ukraine because he's now running for the Workers' Party. There you go. So yeah, this is why we're doing it, because there's these types of people, when they say this stuff, they need to be challenged. Otherwise, people fall for it. This is why you should challenge. And I think Galloway should be challenged for the stuff he says about Ukraine. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened too much, because I think he knows to keep his mouth shut about it, because he knows he'd get some serious pushback, as he did very recently about the terrorist attack, joining in, saying, "Oh, it was clearly that was a Western false flag attempt, clearly, planned by Ukraine." No, it wasn't. There's no evidence, nothing said like that. ISIS-K came out and said, "Yeah, we were the ones who did that terrorist attack. Uh, hello. Here's a load of like video footage and evidence to support. We did it." The West came out and said, "Yeah, it was ISIS-K from like the signals intelligence, like the listening into like communications and things like that." And then Iran even came out and said, "We've got separate intelligence because we've captured ISIS-K fighters and found out through interrogation of these ISIS-K fighters that they were going to be doing terrorist attacks in Russia." So there is more than enough evidence um, to say that it was not the Ukrainians that did this. But what can you say? Hang on. Oh, okay. Pending blue badger. There we go. Accept. There we go. Question of sanity. Thank you very much. According to Wikipedia, Murray dodged army cadet training at school. Well, it doesn't surprise me. Does not surprise me. I've got you. I've just added you as a friend on the Discord. I'm just waiting for One Angry Pagan. I bet I can add her, actually. I wonder if it is the same. Oh. Oh. Oh, this is ridiculous. Oh, please create one. I don't get what you mean. Oh, wait a minute. No, I know what it is. There we go. That's a strange AI test. Please click on H5 humans. There we go. Didn't work. Oh, well. Oh, I shall wait. I get added. I'm on the Labour Social Discord. No, I'm not actually. Like, out of all the Discords I'm on, I don't think I'm on the Labour Social Discord. Let me just check. No, Labour Socialist Discord, which I've routinely keep on getting kicked out of. I wonder why. Join Discord. I really should join it, I suppose. Let's find it. I'm doing anything I can, but not to talk about more Craig Murray, for at least for the time being. Community? Question mark. Labour Social Patreon. You don't have to be a Patreon member, do you? I can't remember now if. Let's look at this. Is there a Discord link somewhere? Is there a link to Discord somewhere? Nope, I can't see it. Let's go to a live. See if there's one there. Let's see on the anniversary show. Is there a link below here? By Lib Social Mug. With Patreon. Nope, I can't find a link to it. Never mind. But yeah, if you add is Craig Murray on Discord? I don't know. Ballhammer, are you opening a Discord server? No. No. Like I say, I have put my Discord name in server. If you put that in, you should be able to find me pretty easily. Blue Badges just found me pretty easily through that. And like I say, to do it, just click on your top, click on your friends, and that's what you want to look at. So let me just. I'm not showing anything new. Like I say, that is my Discord username. Angry Pagan, just put it in chat again. But yeah, if you just click on that, you can join in. Oh, team up might be fun. Let's see if we can poke the bear a bit. I'm just going to go on Twitter and see. Have a look if Craig Murray is on Twitter. I don't think he is, but who knows? Who knows? Let's have a look. Contact. I know, email. Ah, he is. He is. Oh, look, there he is. Oh, dear. Hold on. Let me get that. Then this. I do apologize, by the way, that I'm not saying anything, but like I say, anything not to cover more of anything not to cover more of Craig Murray at the moment. But I want to finish this off because honestly, yeah, this guy deserves everything he gets. Being called, a Putin shill, a Putin apologist, Putin pusher. I don't know. Call him what you will. I suppose. So, this is yeah. Deserves it so much. Anyway, that does live streams. There I am. Grab a link. Get a share the link. That's what I want. There we go. See. Anyway, that's that posted. Oh, there we are. Pending. Yeah. Putin fluffer. Yeah. Is Craig Murray on YouTube? I don't know. He might actually well be. He very well may be. Anyway, where are you, pagan? I mean, I've already actually got you in my friends list. Oh, well, we'll wait. But anyway, let's get back to this then. Yeah, nice diversion. Anyway, if you were watching this, congratulations, we are back. I'll give you the little sign. We're back here. Here we are. We're back. We're back covering this after that nice little brief detour. But my God, I needed that. I needed just a brief foray away from this because Jesus Christ, this is some insane stuff. So Murray, or at least Craig Murray, has been over the historical reasons. And here's the thing, as we said just before, even if, let's say, you grant him everything from a historical perspective, that the Ukrainian sort of nation state has only existed since 1991, still does not justify the current invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Say that with me now. Oh, Tom, yeah, remember to don that tinfoil hat. Yep. Oh, if only I had some tinfoil. I absolutely would. Oh. Anyway, so where were we? So here we are. So there is also the case of third-party recognition of Ukrainian nationality. Again, it does not matter that you're trying to sign some sort of historical justification of this Ukrainian nation state. Ukraine exists now. Say whatever you want about etc. happening in the past. Does not justify the current invasion of Ukraine. You are desperately reaching here to try and justify Putin's talking points here, Craig. You are an absolute Putin apologist at this point by trying to justify Putin's crazy historical ramblings with Tucker Carlson. Anyway, I have read, for example, letters and memoirs, both published and unpublished, by scores of British soldiers and civil servants involved in the imperial rivalry with Russia in Asia. Many had contact with the Russian officers and diplomats, and they did clearly recognize different ethnic identities within the Russian Empire. The Russian diplomat Jen Volskisky, also described repeatedly by British officers as Polish, for example, Cossack or Tartar, were frequently used. I cannot recall any of these British sources ever using the description Ukrainian. As we said, doesn't matter. Does not justify the current invasion of Ukraine, Craig. Nor did the British officers who actually passed through Ukraine, like Fred Barnaby, Arthur Connolly, who described it as such in their memoirs, nor that am I claiming that if British imperialists did not notice something, it did not exist. Well, what about the reverse? What if Russian imperialists claimed that it did not exist? Does it exist now? No, still does not justify your crazy justification of this. Like, why on earth are you going so far? Why on earth are you going so far to try and justify this invasion of Ukraine? It's pure Putin apologia. It's Putin propaganda. I think at this moment, honestly, any like credibility this guy had as like a former diplomat or anything like that can be pretty much torn to shreds. To be honest, honestly. Oh, there we are. Accept. Second, I'll send you the invite link. There you go. Anyway, back to this. So yeah. Question. Yeah. So will Italy be invading Eritrea next? Again, this is why this historical argument does not back up any valid claim for Russia, nor does it justify the current invasion, because otherwise you can justify so much. Like, so much. France could easily just lay claim to Belgium, the Netherlands, parts of Germany, parts of Italy. You know? Heck, Austria, if it wanted to, could lay claim to the entire Austrian Empire if it wanted to. Why not? Why not pursue this bizarre historical chain that they are pursuing? It does not make a bit of sense, this ridiculous historical thing that they push, but there you go. Anyway, I have a second. Hang on.
Good Nathan. Good evening. Wow, from everything I've heard you say tonight, wow, this guy. So yeah, I am Shadowita, one angry pagan, and yes, that is how you say it. It's Old English. It's where we get the word shadow from. So Shadowita, one angry pagan. I do a lot of having a go at the right wing and the far left because they're unreasonable. And as your video, as your live show tonight, the far left are not just unreasonable but idiotic.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, this guy is. I just don't know. I honestly just don't know. And it's like this guy has like an entire like history as like a British diplomat as well. Like this guy's like a former diplomat. You'd think he'd know better, but apparently not. But he is running for George Galloway's party. So, you know, I suppose it's par for the course that you've got to sort of fall in with the pro-Russian crowd, I suppose, at this point.
Well, yeah. I mean, to be fair, I mean, Lee Anderson came from technically our crowd, so you know, it's you do get the.
Well, no, the Anderson's origin story was someone asked him, "Have you ever read Marx?" And apparently that was the trigger point.
Don't like the amount of people on the left that tried to scream Marx at me, and it's hilarious because Dialectic materialism is basically looking at, in basic terms, is basically looking at the material reality of the situation and reacting accordingly, and in a moral and logical manner, rather than from the position of a greedy capitalist, for example.
Yeah. I mean, my whole position on Marx has been, back in his day, the guy was probably right. And there is no way Marx could have predicted half the stuff that we have achieved now. The fact that workers and workers' rights have advanced so much since his day, Marx would, I think, would be quite shocked that we've achieved that. I mean,
people forget that Marx actually talked up capitalism for the benefits it's actually given to humanity. You know, he talked a lot about regulation. Now, I'm not communist, because communist describes an end point for society, and as an evolutionist, as a socialist, I believe that things just evolve rather than getting to an end point. So this why it goes against my grain with these people trying to back Putin in the same way that they tried to back the USSR, which is in of itself a little bit deluded, considering the USSR was not the utopia that far left seemed to think it was.
I mean, that's the whole tanky position, though. The idea that it is a the current Russian Federation is a continuation of the USSR.
Well, it's because Putin was part of the FSB, wasn't he? FSB?
Yeah.
Is that the right one? Yeah.
I mean, that's how he came. That's how he came to power. That's how he gained most of his stuff. That's how he became mayor of Moscow, mayor of St. Petersburg.
People seem to. Western socialists seem to think that this is just especially like this guy and George Galloway. They seem to think he's just a continuation of this. I mean, George Galloway is a contradiction in terms anyway, because he's socially conservative and apparently economically left. So it's like, as far as I'm concerned, the guy is a contradiction in ideological terms anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and then when it comes to Syria is his blatant like contradiction, because oh my god, like he does not, he basically supports Assad, apparently supports Assad, or doesn't support Assad now. Apparently he's changed his mind, but I haven't seen any evidence that he has. He's had plenty of like pro-Assad people on his Moat show before. He has a guy called what's it, Infrared, like probably one of like the biggest tankies on here.
I saw that guy
on his show.
I saw Forsh cover Infrared having an argument with, it might have been Dylan Bones, but it might have been someone different. And
this way, like he challenged him to a boxing match.
Yeah, yes, that guy is irrational.
Yeah, it just goes from naught to ridiculous in like 60 seconds.
Socialism to me is like one of the best ways to facilitate democracy in a beneficial way, and the way these people treat it, it's as if like it needs to be radical. But the problem with radicalism, and it's not like I'm against all radicalism, but the problem with radicalism is that it is in its nature antagonistic. Which is why I'm more along the lines of, well, exactly. I mean, this is why I'm more along the lines of an Iron Bevan, who was a reformist.
Yeah, this is why when people go, "Oh, we want a revolution," how do you know what that revolution is going to end up being? There's so many like historical examples. French Revolution, perfect example of a revolution that just went.
How many revolutions did France have?
Oh, I think it was like 6.
But that's just it. Revolution means there's going to be another one.
It's just that itself. I mean, there was the whole thing from like the initial revolution. Then you had the more hardcore takeover. There was Robespierre's revolution. There's Napoleon's sort of revolution that he did to take over. There's the revolution after that. Technically, you could like count like the Paris Commune and things that they did in sort of that. Les Mis, the big sort of stage musical, is about a failed revolution attempt.
Well, that was the liberal. Wasn't that the liberal revolution in France?
I can't remember which one it was based on now. But yeah, it might have been. I can't remember off the top of my head now. So
And
I've honestly
it's
fried
one
my
of those
brain
things
on
where,
this
again,
book.
like I think of things from I spent most of my life doing amateur paleontology, studying how things evolve, and I put that thinking towards society and culture as I started getting older. And when about 5 to 6 years ago, when I started to get into politics, when I started learning about it, I obviously my understanding of it came under that context as well. And when you look at the way things evolve, the way when people try to dogmatically stick to an ideology, it's like you don't give allowance for evolution, for ideology, for ways of thinking, which means we now, as I said in the chat, it means we now are stuck in, and many of us anyway, are stuck in 20th century thinking. My generation, the millennials, and those younger than me, the Gen Z and Gen Alpha, or what they're called, we're not moving to the right like the previous generations, which means that when we take their realm, their house of power in, say, 15, 20 years, what we do now can facilitate what they can do when they finally take power. Which is why people like this trying to facilitate Putin, Galloway as well, and people who try to talk down about Labour for not being as purely left as they'd like, and basically helping the Tories by dividing the left vote, trying to basically treat our system as if we're already in PR. Now, I want PR, you want PR. We don't have PR, so you can't treat the board you can't treat the chessboard as if it's a game of Monopoly, for example. We have to play the game as much as we can, stretch the rules as much as we can, but we can't we can't just
That's it.
go
You
in
have
there
to play the game. If you're not going to play the game, then what are you playing?
I've had a bunch of arguments with people who argue with me about tribalism. Tribalism is natural for our species. It just is. It's it's a uncomfortable fact, but it is actually a fact. It's not just my opinion. You look at throughout all of our history, it's a fact. When you get a species who disseminates across such a wide geographical range, they are always going to diversify in their thinking, in their culture, in their language. This isn't, some kind of thing to dominate the masses. This just naturally happens. What needs to happen is we need to try and cross the bridges. We don't need to try and homogenize. I don't want people to become the same, because we're not. But we need to draw bridges. Now, we can't draw bridges with Russia until Putin's gone, which is why, as I said in the chat again, I believe at this point NATO should join the war.
I don't know if NATO can join the war at the moment.
Or at least get more involved.
I think you need to be... There need to be something happen. I think you've obviously seen in Poland very recently, Poland's now said it's going to extend its anti-air umbrella and start shooting down any missiles that sort of head towards its territory regardless.
France has its own proxy war with Russia at the moment, because France is trying to cozy up to Armenia and is battling with Russia in France Afrique, or the France Afrique countries seem to be disappearing, or trying to shake off France's influence anyway, and going to Russian influence, which is even worse. France
again, it's because of those Soviet roots. People forget that the Soviet Union used to sort of provide a lot of anti-colonial capital. If you wanted to rebel, the Soviet Union was more than happy to sort of back your cause, supply you with weapons, money, etc., to back that cause. And there's a lot of people in Africa who still see today the current Soviet state as a continuation. They are almost exactly the same thinking as the Tankies. That's why there's a lot of African states that are bizarrely
They
still
don't even have
supporting,
the
you know,
trappings of socialism, the few trappings of socialism that the USSR even had. You know, the workers' unions and such. They don't even have those anymore in Russia. You know, I've spoken to a Russian socialist in Russia, who obviously can't speak out in any way, because otherwise he will fall victim to that
yep,
suspicious
fall out a window.
gravity
Yeah,
virus.
fall victim to gravity.
That's very window born.
Anyway, shall we continue with this? Because I want to try and,
Go ahead.
as
Go
you can
ahead.
see, there's still a lot
This is
through.
this. Oh yeah. Like, go ahead. My friend.
Let me find out where we were. Here it is. Yes. So he was talking about if the British Imperials did not exist. So here we should. So yes. So I should be interested to know, when Ukrainian nationalists claim their heritage lies as proof of early national identity, what is the Ukrainian equivalent of Shakespeare, John of Gaunt's speech, of Scotland's Blind Harry, or even Poland's? Oh my god! There is probably a lot
This
of
is what I would
things
call.
Ukrainians could claim.
What's it called when that's it? Cultural. Oh, when you pinch someone else's
Cultural
culture.
appropriation. That's it.
That's it, right? What he's doing here is the exact opposite.
Yeah, it's cultural
Like
disappropriation.
that's it. Yeah, he's enforcing his idea of culture on.
Yeah, he's saying what is and what isn't
isn't.
Ukrainian. Yeah.
It's like when I try to explain to people the difference between monotheistic cultures and polytheistic cultures, right? This is a very fundamental difference in that, and my example is Rome, and this does tie in, trust me. The polytheistic Rome, when they conquered Britain or anywhere, whilst they would say that, yeah, you had to add your gods in, you weren't stopped from believing your own gods and doing your own stuff, basically. As soon as it was taken over by Christianity, monotheism, if you didn't believe in Christianity, you died. You know, it came down to it was a huge cultural difference. And again, what this guy's trying to do here is apply one to the other when it's non-applicable.
Yeah, Craig's got a point. Yeah, you literally have, if you don't have a proper flag, then you're not a real nation. Yeah.
I mean,
and yet Christian assembly as well. Yeah, back in the 9th century, yeah, wasn't Kiev the capital of Russia? Yeah, Kiev and Rus.
I mean, it depends. I mean, kings and generals really did, not knights and generals. Kings and generals have done a really good series about the history of that part of the world, and you see how, despite the fact that the Norse who went to the Slavic-speaking worlds, whilst they integrated there was still a very Slavic, culture there. Yeah. And then the Mongols came in, and the whole area was portioned up, and it was all, how continents change over millions of years. That's how it looks.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. Yeah, it changes, it's adapted. Yeah, there is no, the Ukrainian identity has been formed from many, different things, and it's insane, because this argument does not hold any water, because it starts to be, well, actually, we could lay claim to all kinds of territories throughout the world if we wanted to in the UK, and so could any other country or any post, colonial country.
The Yamnaya people, the original peoples, European peoples, right, came from the area where Ukraine sits now, not where Moscow sits. And even then, Moscow didn't always used to be Russia. It used to be its own little enclave. Like, it expanded to take over Russia. Russia claims not to be this imperialistic force, but it got its land through imperialism. Yeah. Its whole identity is as hypocritical as ours.
Yeah. So we'll continue. So this, I like this. This is the genuine question. There may be areas of Ukrainian history of historic identity of which I am unaware. I think he's choosing not to.
Plenty.
Yeah, he's basically choosing not to acknowledge the
I mean,
historic.
what about the
Voltaire?
What
has
about the numerous Russification attempts in the whole of Ukraine, let alone the Crimea, where they got
Poland,
hostage?
yeah, Finland as well. Well, parts of Finland that got taken,
Yeah.
So anyway, let's continue with this. So Putin was not wrong about history, apart from the dodgy bit of origins of the Second World War.
If
I think
Putin
he's
wasn't wrong
very,
about
very
history,
wrong his interpretation of history. Very, very pro-Russian. I wonder why he'd be giving a pro-Russian version of history. But the correct question is where any of this matters. And I've said this since he's got on with this tangent. None of this actually matters, because otherwise the UK could claim vast swathes of territory throughout the world. Belgium could, France could, the Netherlands could just claim all of Indonesia if it wanted to. Rebuild the Dutch East Indies. Why not? Hey, it's historical, right?
there is a societal aspect to this, because Russia, and it's Putin was partly symptom of this, was after from about probably the start of the 80s, the USSR was on a decline, and Putin, and by the time that the USSR fell, like, that was exacerbated to a point where Putin had become a taxi driver or something like that, despite having done so much work within the Russian intelligence. So it's like it almost, in a way, it's almost sent a weird sense of nationalism that led to Brexit.
Yeah.
But with Russia,
it's nationalism in a nutshell, really. Regardless of whatever flavor you want to package it in, Brexit, Russian nationalism,
exactly.
very similar things.
This isn't to try and denigrate the Russian culture at all, but it is, by and large, if you look at it historically, is rather brutal. And even to its relatively modern day, their general culture is fairly brutal in comparison to a lot of other cultures. And because of that, their response to such a decline was to look for a big strong man. Putin comes in and doesn't ever give them a chance to evolve. This is a good example of what happens when you have someone who refuses to let things evolve.
Yep. Anyway, let's continue on with this, because it's about to get worse.
Yeah, worse.
So, so it is not whether Putin's historical Putin's historical analytics is broadly correct. It is whether this matters. I'm inclined to the view that Putin is correct, that there is little evidence that people living in Ukraine hundreds of years ago ever considered themselves a distinct national entity.
And at the same time, the Russians didn't consider themselves Russian; they considered themselves Muscovites.
Muscovites, yeah.
Or Novgorod was another area of that part of it. They would call themselves Novgorodians or some shit. They wouldn't call themselves fucking Russians. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And then I think this is really bad, but they are all dead, so they don't get the vote. Yeah, the fantastic wording there, Craig. The only thing that matters is the opinion of those that are living now, which shockingly, I actually would agree with him. It does. His entire historical tangent is pointless, because it matters about those people who are living there right now.
And they don't want to be Russian.
They don't want to be part of Russian. Yeah. So why, why don't we pay attention to them?
He defeated his argument on both fronts. He defeated his own argument on both fronts within the same paragraph.
I know.
How do you even get this on?
I know. So it seems to me beyond dispute that there is now a Ukrainian national identity. And there are several Ukrainians who consider themselves joyously and patriotically Ukrainian. I know as many patriotic Galatians as even patriotic Uzbekis. The question is now how this identity was forged, and how recently is not the point. I should also add, undoubtedly, that a great many of Ukrainians whose sense of a national identity is not linked to Nazism there is historical and again a current strain of Nazism in the Ukraine nationalism. You haven't shown any evidence of that throughout this entire blog. That again, this is something that the Russians claim as their justification for this war.
And
They want
the
to
Azov battalion,
denazify Ukraine.
the Azov battalion itself only consisted of about 5 to 10% Nazis. Like the supposed Nazi battalion only had a small portion of it actually of them being Nazis. Like,
and then what about Rusich, an actual Nazi part of the Russian military and army? Does Craig not care about that? If he cares about who's the Nazi, should maybe want to complain about those ones in there. But there you go.
It's selective, isn't it? It's all selective.
Yeah. Tom. Yeah, my Ukrainian friend told me that all the Russian-speaking citizens of Kiev have now started talking only Ukrainian. Yeah, I said that just a few moments ago. This is really uniting the Ukrainians on this. They don't want to speak Russian anymore because of what happened, because they just don't want anything to do with Russia anymore. So Putin has really shot any real chance of like a reunification ever happening, because they don't want any part of Russia anymore.
People like this like to say how evil the US and the UK and countries in the EU are, right? But that doesn't take away from the fact that countries like Russia, Israel, and China can be just as fucking evil, and if not more. I mean, look again, Russia just takes things overboard. We invaded Iraq and Afghanistan illegally, right? And I think we were wrong to do that. But it doesn't make it any right for Russia to fucking do so, and even greater, and with an even greater death toll, with an even worse reasoning behind it as well.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't justify what they did in Georgia. It doesn't justify what they did in Chechnya. Doesn't justify them taking Crimea either. It's
amazing it's amazing that they even managed to take the bit of Georgia that they did, to be honest, because they ended up using fucking walkie-talkies, not army issue radios. I'm talking actual walkie-talkies in the 2008 Georgia war. It was, even back then, they were bad with their equipment, and they're having to scrabble around with. They're having to go to North Korea, of all people, for
get weapons and missiles. It's
because China aren't. Very interestingly, China are still refusing to give Russia all it wants.
Yep, which is good. You've got to keep China certainly on side on that. And I think I've said this before in Geoscope. You've got to try and sort of get Iran to sort of stop supplying Russia, and of course India as well. Iran might be a bit easier, undoing the sanctions, stuff like that. That might be able to tempt them away from that, and sort of bringing them more.
So long as Trump
India is going to be the big problem, I think. India is the more difficult nut to crack on that.
Yeah, Modi's nationalism means that India really is a wild card on that one. Like, because it wants to have a fairly close relationship with the West, but at the same time, it's more than happy to take stuff from Russia.
Yep. All right, let's crack on with this. Where were we? It seems to be on dispute that there is now Ukrainian national identity. I know. Oh no, we've already read that. The question is now. So I should yes. Should I? Oh no, we've read that as well.
Formation.
But to claim this. Yes, here we are. I should also like to say that the great many Ukrainians whose sense of nationality is not linked to Nazism. There is a historical and current strain of Ukrainian in Nazism in Ukraine nationalism, and that is too far tolerated by the Ukrainian state. That is certainly true. No, it's not. But there you go. Yeah, his claim, he hasn't substantiated it, so he's got no evidence to it, so I can just dismiss it. But to claim that all Ukrainian nationalists are Nazis is nonsense. At least I'm glad he says that.
Well, at least he's not an absolutist in that sense.
Yeah. Next, it would be interesting to find out what if we could actually ever talk to him, what he thinks of that percentage actually are. Like how many Nazi Ukrainians does he think there actually are, and how much of problems do you think this is? I think he considers it to be quite a big one, but
you'd be like, mate, we'll get you to do a lineup, and I want you to point out the Nazis.
Yeah,
bet you can do it.
Yeah, which one? So the formation of a national identity is a very curious thing. The Ivory Coast that just won the African Cup of Nations at soccer beat Nigeria in the final. The competition aroused huge patriotic fever throughout the continent of Africa, but the boundaries of the African nations, except arguably Ethiopia, are entirely artificial colonial constructs. They cut right across ethnic, cultural, and logistical boundaries. Yes, they did that, but again, does not justify
Everything to
anything
do
with
with
Russia.
human civilization. Oh my god, it is artificial by in of itself. Like again, like England didn't become England until Alfred the Great conquered all of the Celtic speaking parts of the UK that we now call England. Granted, yes, the borders have shifted a bit now and then since, but from that point, that's when and we weren't even the UK until what, a couple of 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So this again, the guy defeats his own argument.
Yeah, like I say, the simpler you look at his arguments, the more you sort of think about what he's really saying. All his arguments just crumble to pieces on this, just so simply.
All you got to do is actually
yeah.
take an
I suppose it's
unbiased
what
look
happens
at
when
history.
you start drinking the Putin Kool-Aid, but hey, or not even the Putin Kool-Aid, the Galloway Kool-Aid that he hands out at the meetings.
Just because it cuts across ethnic, cultural, and linguistic boundaries, yes, but these lines have moved around for more than 2,000 years. It's not going to fucking change.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the few things that is like unlikely to change, is the fact that these things change.
Yeah.
As weird as that sounds.
So much of modern Ghana was an old Ashani kingdom that existed for much further now into the Ivory Coast. These coastal areas that were never Ashani in the east, the Yui people's lands are now cut completely by an artificial boundary with Togo. To north, the larger Muslim population live a much more rural lifestyle, yet the Guyanans are fiercely proud of these imposed state of Guyana. They are proud that it was, of course, the first African state to attain independence. They are proud of the heritage of supporting African liberation movements, including the ANC. They are proud of the education system. They have a real sense of national identity that goes far beyond the passionate support of its supporting teams. Does that apply to the Ukrainians as well?
I think this guy needs to do GCSE sociology. Like, he might understand that a bit better than. Like, seriously.
So the Guyanan identity is a modern ahistoric with an entirely colonial boundaries, but it is real and it is valid. Again, does not that everything you just said about the Guyanans, does not that also apply to the Ukrainians as well? I think it does. Defeats his own idea of national identity and challenging it.
Again, Russia. How many ethnicities does Russia contain? And how many actual
I think
languages?
it's like 38.
This is like just a simple look, unbiased look at geography and history ruins this guy's arguments.
How many?
When he doesn't ruin them himself.
Oh, do you want to guess how many different Russian ethnic groups there are?
I'm guessing there's about 50.
190.
Oh my fucking god.
190 different ethnic groups in Russia.
Okay, that caught me by surprise. Actually, it shouldn't surprise me. Russia's is the largest country in the world.
Yeah,
by landmass. It's insane.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but even that is his own thing about how proud like the Guyanans are that they've got the own sense of being. The Ukrainians had that before the war. That hasn't changed now. If anything, it's gotten stronger because of this war.
Look at America. Like he should say this about America, for fuck's sake.
Exactly. America's a perfect example. There was no such thing as an American sort of ideology or a culture prior, yeah, like I say, his argument's just paper thin, absolutely paper thin.
Any education and critical, unbiased thinking destroys any argument this guy makes.
The thing is, he's a diplomat. He's a diplomat. He should know these. This is like diplomat 101, when you learn about sort of the different cultures. And he's a diplomat of Uzbekistan. He should know about all these. But it shocks me that he doesn't. And I
Well,
have to really
you
struggle
think,
why
well,
he would do this.
on a similar bent, you'd think J.K. Rowling would know a thing about discrimination, considering the context
Yeah,
of her books. But
yeah,
she turned out to be a bigoted psycho. So
yeah.
these things do happen.
Anyway, in Central Asia, the boundaries of the stands, I like that, the stands in quotation mark, are again colonial boundaries that cut right across the pre-existing khanates. The boundaries of these ex-Soviet republics are carefully designated by Stalin. Oh, okay. So Stalin was like the perfect line drawer then. Is that
Stalin didn't even run everything. Like, this guy doesn't even realize that, like, Stalin, whilst yes, he was a dictator, there were councils and such that ran the country. Like, nuance seems to be extinct with these people.
Oh, there is no nuance. It's not even extinct. It never was to begin with. So the boundaries of these ex-Soviet republics were carefully designated by Stalin not to be ethnically or culturally coherent, to guard against the development of the national opposition, so that the greatest Tajik cities, Bukhara and Samarkand, are not in Tajikistan but Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan has important similarities to Ukraine. Both are states with boundaries of the old Soviet republics, which have no relationship to any pre-existing state or nation. In both, this may be a legacy of the Soviet authoritarianism. The state has attempted to force a national identity by compromising homogeny. So the Russian language medium in education was first banned in Uzbekistan and then Tajik. Ukraine has now similarly banned the Russian language. This, of course, is nothing new in state behavior, as Highland Scots well know. Not just in Highland Baltic countries as well. We've done something similar.
My argument with his last point of Ukraine have similarly banned the Russian language. I made this point earlier. Moscow has tried its Russification program on the people of that now call the country Ukraine. Like that, they've imposed Russification on them more than 6 different occasions. And this
I know, it's painful.
It's like thinking
it's honestly it's a weird argument he's making here, but I honestly don't think he'd be able to substantiate in an actual conversation. Honestly,
I would be very interested to have a face-to-face conversation with this.
It would be very weird. It would be very weird. It would be very difficult.
It would be surreal. But understanding breeds empathy. Both breed wisdom. But you can't get any of them without acceptance. And I need to accept that his point of view is his point of view, and he's not just bullshitting to get attention.
Yeah, it's again. What can you say, really?
He's no longer a diplomat and still needs the attention, so he comes up with.
It's just bear in mind, it is a point to bring up. They did not actually ban Russian. You can still speak Russian in Ukrainian. What the law was specifically was to establish a primacy so that you speak Ukrainian first. If you go into a government-run office here in the UK, they will speak to you in English first. They do now. Technically, if you think about it, you've got Gaelic, you've got Cornish, Welsh. If you go into somewhere in Wales, they're going to speak to you in English first, and then they might try Welsh if it looks like you've understood. Or if you want documents not in English in Welsh or whatever, same if you file your taxes in Ukrainian, but you want them in Russian, you'll have to sort of request that. It's not that they have banned it; it's that they've said, right, we are going to reestablish our old language. That's the language we want to sort of speak. And if anything, this war has accelerated that language, which, to be honest, will be good for Ukraine, because just make it that harder for the Russians in the future to try stuff. But there you go.
See, Ukraine are as I abhor pacifism because it's an absolutist mindset. In any situation, they won't fight. They think fighting is bad, which is why Corbyn is so cringe with his takes on Ukraine.
Yeah,
He's right.
Mm.
He was right on Israel, and perfectly reasonable to say that he was correct on Israel. But
broken clock.
you know, he was. It was like the complete opposite opinion about Russia. Like, was just given to Russia. Like, no.
Yeah. There's so much wrong, honestly, when it comes
Who's
to
it
this.
supposed to help?
I think the Salisbury poisonings were, I think, a clear example of what would have happened if he had won, like the 2019 general election. I don't think we would supply any offensive weaponry to Ukraine if Putin, if Corbyn had been in charge.
Yeah, and this is one good stand from start. One thing that Starmer has said that I do believe him on is that he will continue to stand by Ukraine, and I do believe him on that.
Yeah, like I say, it needs to be a cross-party initiative more than anything, and I'm glad that it has been very much a cross-party push on that.
I don't even think the SNP are arguing on this one.
Yeah. Anyway, we're near the end. let's try and get through this. So, even in Uzbekistan, a passionate national identity has now been created among the Kazakhs, the Tajiks who also reside there. But this alchemy, which happens, is partly mystifying, partly because it depends on the natural loyalty to whether authority exists, which is rather a troubling thought. What?
That's not how
a
culture
natural loyalty to whichever authority exists.
That's not how that works. How did this guy become? Was this guy actually a good diplomat? Does anyone know what this guy's record was as a diplomat?
Apparently, like I say, this is it. He has a good record. He has a somewhat good sort of record in this department. This is why it's so surprising for him to just completely do this massive U-turn and start supporting this. And as someone I think mentioned earlier in the comments, he's blamed the Salisbury poisoning on Israel. And again, why would Israel poison
I'm no fan of
former
Israel.
agent of Russia who would switch sides to the West?
What did he give a reason?
I don't know, but whatever. This guy seems to honestly burn any like former street cred he had, to be honest.
See, this is why I find it so entertaining watching Vorsh, because at least watching him debate these kind of idiots, because one, it helps us to sharpen our own arguments against these morons, but two, you see just how broken society is right now because of the flux that we're in. This is as I said, a social/cultural paradigm shift, and because of the global interconnectedness of the world now, that paradigm shift is global, and it's affecting Russia as well as it's affecting Russia, China, India, as well as the rest, and Africa. Even Africa is having its own societal paradigm shifts in different ways. The whole world is in flux right now, and people like Putin are trying to direct the path. And this view of nationalism,
which is good.
This skewed view of how cultures work is how Putin is trying to get people around it to his thinking.
Just all the right wing in general, really. That's just been their argument, really, from the past couple of years, really. But anyway, let's try. We've got three more paragraphs.
Very nearly, very close.
So, for Central Asia, Oliver Roy's theory of the new Central Asia, the creation of nations, has some very serious thoughts and sociology for this process. I am aware that I do need to read more on the creation of a national identity. Oh, absolutely, he does, because most of what my thought is now based on very simple observation. I don't think you've even done any simple observation, given what we've read. But there you go.
It's not even done, however.
Nope. Oops, sorry. Yep. It is, however, entirely plain that the national identity can appear and can be genuine, and can do so in a period of many decades. There is now a Ukrainian national identity, and those who subscribe to it have a right to their state. Well, at least I'm glad he says that, but he's about to say this, that they have the right to the former boundaries of the Soviet Ukraine is a different proposition. Okay.
Soviet. So, but the Soviet, it hasn't been Soviet for that more than what, 30 years?
Yep.
Oh,
Given that the reality that there is now a plain significant majority of the population that do not subscribe to the Ukrainian national identity, the civil war that broke out, this now relates to historic geographical fracture lines. It seems that the division of territory is now only inevitable but desirable. Never was to begin with. This whole civil war was manufactured by Putin, by people who were not Ukrainians. There's been enough people who have spoken out, who live in the Donbass, who have said, we were fine, we were happy. And then all of a sudden, these random people turned up and started wanting us to be the Donbass Republic. This also happened in Kherson, up north.
there is a
They tried to
historical.
create the Kherson Republic.
I will. I
That
will
did not
say.
work because the people of Kherson pushed them out.
No, I will say, in terms of the Donbass and Luhansk regions, there is a historical grievance from some of the people there because after the fall of the Soviet Union, a lot of the industrial base there, a lot of it it was being bought up by different oligarchs, and a lot of the money got sucked out of those regions. Now, it is still very strange that these people would try to support, would think that supporting Russia's the better idea, because like the main oligarchs that sucked up most of their money were Russians that lived in Ukraine at the time that have since fucked off back to fucking Russia. But there is, from the people anyway, there is some historical grievance, as tenuous as it is, but it that doesn't give them any right to enforce their own beliefs on the rest of the populace.
Like I say, I do not believe that it is as big as like Craig says here. This entire sort of civil war was manufactured by Putin. There has never been a serious attempt to try and find out how big that majority actually is.
Oh,
We've seen the referendums.
It's always been a minority. Anyone who's, it's like when in this country when people try to talk about the silent majority, it's not a silent majority at all.
It was yeah, I agree with you. It was a minority, a very tiny minority, and Putin's never really actually tested that or any sort of serious proper way. Bear in mind, of course, he's now claimed 2 other oblasts as well, Zaporizhia, and the other one, I can't remember what it was now, Kherson as well. He also claimed that, in his great speech, these territories are now returning to Mother Russia just last year. Of course, he doesn't even own all those full territories, despite as they might try to take them, which has cost them hundreds of thousands of lives. It would end up very, very bad for Russia, given the fact they're already in a demographic crisis.
Technically, the Kerch Bridge is enforced imperialism.
Yep.
Like
also a prime target for the Ukrainians.
Crimea. I actually feel sorry for Crimea because so many times they've had their population diminished and then fell back up with Russian speaking people, who then once again get a Crimean national identity about themselves, and then Russia comes back again and again and again, and they've done it again, and people still try to go, oh, but Russia has the right to do so because Russian speaking people are there. It's like,
I know. Oh, anyway, let's try and get this. Where are we? But desirable. So, all good people of goodwill should therefore wish to see an end to the fighting and a peace settlement, of which the territorial elements are somewhat close to trying the current lines between the forces, Well, Russia is giving back some territory in return for recognition of its gains. No,
It hasn't said so.
why? Why
It said,
should we?
nothing,
Why
nothing of the
should
sort.
we
Where did you
give
get that
Russia
bullshit from?
any?
He pulled that out of his arse.
Yeah, we should not give anything back to Russia in return for some territorial gains. What on earth? Why?
Russia never said it would be giving anything back. It's always said that it wants full submission from
How
Ukraine.
can you even trust Russia? How can you even trust Russia? How do you know they're not going to do this again? Because the big problem with the Ukrainians is they are constantly saying, we want to make sure that we don't have to do this again in another 10 years or 8 years. We want to make sure that there is going to be a permanent peace. So they are looking for security guarantees in and around this. The alternative is more death, human misery, and economic malaise.
That's going to...
So... Forgive me for pointing out the ability. Forgive me for pointing out that my ability to try and provide coverage of this is entirely. Oh no, that's just his thing. So yeah, that's it. That's it. We're done.
His whole argument is the national identity of Ukraine is fairly recent, therefore it's not legitimate. Well, again, the US, like seriously. Are you gonna? I mean, India as it is now, Pakistan, Bangladesh. I'm like,
many of the former Ottoman states. I mean, most of
our own bloody country,
Eastern Europe, Serbia,
our own bloody country,
Greece. Technically,
our own bloody country hasn't even the UK has only been around just longer than the US.
Yep, Ireland. Yeah. There's none of this. The second you start thinking about this argument just falls to pieces, because all of a sudden you can go, oh well, don't we get to claim that? Don't we get to claim that? Don't we get to claim that? Going back to his beginning, like the justification, all he's repeated is Russian propaganda for this. Like the causes for the Russian invasion. He says, alarmist at NATO expansion. We know that's complete nonsense. Ukrainian coup, again, it's only a coup if you think there was West involvement. There's no evidence for any West involvement. I like this one. The exasperation at the bad faith of the Ukrainians during the Minsk Accords was not the Ukrainians who were breaking the Minsk Accords. It was Russian. And then the last one is the death toll of the Russian speakers in Donbass.
Something I did want to say when you brought this up originally, Ukraine, I can't remember the details. I do know Ukraine did break the Minsk Accords on a couple of minor parts of it, but that's where Russia was trying to go. Yeah, look, and it was just a couple of minor bits of the accord that they'd broken. It was again something. It was the questions to do with the languages. I think was part of that. And again, it's just like Russia. You're the ones being antagonistic. Stop trying to pull the wool over our eyes.
Yeah,
and I really wish NATO would actually have an actual red line.
Well, this is it. I think we tripped ourselves up by having red lines initially. I think it was very foolish for us to go, we aren't going to send HIMARS, we aren't going to send tanks, we aren't going to send long-range missiles, and eventually we did. We sent all this stuff.
It should have been that if you don't go any further, we won't send these weapons. If you go further, we'll send these weapons.
Yeah.
If they go further, then we send the fucking weapons. I said at this point, by that logic, I reckon we should be in. We should at least not, even if we're not got troops on the ground, at least a lot more involved.
Yeah. This one from Punator. But Ollie, look at the lack of evidence is proof of the contradiction. I learned it at the Trump School for Legal Practice 101. I'm sure that's a worthy degree to have. Punator.
It's one of those where how did he's again? It's like, and this guy was a good diplomat.
Yeah, this is it. By all, like say, looking at his history, look at his thing. You don't become like the chief diplomat of, of a country like representing the UK unless you're actually, good at what you do. He's honestly, I think this is just, I don't know, just burning his entire career to the ground.
He must have. It literally must have been like he's no longer active in his career, and he wants the attention. You know, he might get some money for doing these for doing these pieces and whatnot. But why go in that direction? Why feed the troll?
So pro-Putin? Why become
Like Russia is.
I don't know.
It's not. It's not just Russia has trolls. It is a troll.
It's a mystery. It's a mystery, a history mystery that we never really know. But I don't see what he gets out of this. I do not see what he gets out of this, unless it's Galloway's told him you've got to like be anti-Ukraine. Which I think any Workers' Party member should be challenged on. I think that would be quite a fun convention. So if you are in the Greater Manchester area and you happen to have a Workers' Party candidate running, ask them what they think about Ukraine. Ask them why they think that Russia just gets to have a free slice of Ukraine. And, ask them about what Galloway people should think and what they think of the
workers. I'd like to know how Galloway seems to think he represents workers.
Oh, I don't know. Did you ever see the thing that came out after the day was elected? The altercation he had was someone was asking him like, "Oh, but who are you? You've never been here for 5 years. Like, why should I vote for you?" And he manhandles him and goes, "Well, I don't want your vote." Yeah. Honestly, they should have released that earlier. Which they've released that earlier. That might have had an impact on that. But
he should be gone. He should be gone come the general election. And Walden, Walden, please just allow the path for the general election to come sooner rather than later. Because I can't take it anymore. I cannot take it anymore. You know,
you and me
it's
both.
funny that
you and me both.
It's funny that the left gets a lot of. I mean, there are some on the left who are deranged enough to support Putin, but the left gets a lot of the stigma because of people like this, and yet the side that Putin supports is the right wing. The multi-level hypocrisy is ridiculous. But I'm glad we finally managed to get a connection here, because that was a bit ridiculous. I thought you said Streamlabs to begin with, to be fair. No,
StreamYard. No, this is what I use. Very nice piece of software. I don't know if it's down below in the current one, but I do have a link to a StreamYard link. So if anyone wants to use StreamYard, do use my link down below. You get money off. I get money off. It's all good, But no, so do check out StreamYards if you do want to sort of stream online. It's a very good piece of software. It's very, very easy to use. Easiest probably streaming software to use. You can also get a version for your phone as well, and stream off that as well. Like I say, currently I'm streaming to 3 locations at once. I'm streaming to Twitter, shockingly, or X. We apparently have 10 viewers apparently on X, so hello to those 10 viewers. Obviously YouTube and of course Facebook as well. So yeah, it's a nice sort of multi-platform stream as well. Sort of get these things on. So yeah,
a little quick little promo for my channel.
Yeah, go for it.
I said Shadow Eater, One Angry Pagan. I chat about the left side, politics from the left side of things, but from a pragmatic angle, not from an ideological point of view, because keep letting the Tories back in because Labour aren't purely left enough is a bad way to do things. I also talk about pagan stuff. I try to advance paganism as to be seen not as a joke, but as an equal part of British society, especially considering its roots in our culture. So thank you very much for having me on, Bob, man.
Yep, no problem.
Please check him out.
I like having people on. I like to do these types of things.
This guy is one of the people that helped get me into politics like give this guy support, please like and subscribe.
Oh, thank you. I say thank you very much. But I will be doing the Good Morning Walk tomorrow. I don't know what I'll be talking about. I'll find out tomorrow, I suppose. I've fried my brain on this Craig Murray stuff.
Could be anything.
So,
you never know. Rishi Sunak might have bottled it overnight.
Oh, I probably will have done. Probably will have done. Knowing our luck as always. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. As always, please do hit the like, hit the subscribe button on your way out, and of course down below leave a comment. It helps with the algorithmical stuff. I have actually tagged Craig Murray in a tweet. If you want to go give that a like on Twitter, and you can follow me on Twitter, you can give that a like. We'll see if we poke the hornet's nest. See what response we get. But yeah, always thank you very much. Thank you for joining. Of course, as always, we'll see you tomorrow morning. If not, we'll see you all next time. So until then, cheerio.